What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. We are gathered here today to talk exclusively for the next 120 minutes about the Washington Wizards and all the meaningful basketball they have yet to play. Just kidding. Playoffs are right around the corner, so it's time to do our NBA playoffs pressure index, looking at which teams that are entering the postseason / play-in that are under the most pressure. And believe it or not, we're going to talk about them. This isn't just going to be a 5-minute video of just throwing teams in a tier list, although there will be tiers. Before we get started and get into how we approach this, Mr. Grant Hughes, how the heck are you doing?
What am I going to do with all these notes on the Wizards that I have? Like, do you know how much time I watched every game? Yeah, no, I'm doing well. I'm doing even better because we don't have to talk about the Wizards. We're going to talk about teams. This is one of my, I shouldn't say favorite times of year, because the first round is like, it's just a lot to watch all these games and try to formulate thoughts on them and do normal work on top of that. But I don't know how you feel about this. I'm so sick of looking at the schedule every night and being like, 8 of these 9 games are meaningless. Don't like, it's been, and there was a lot of that this year. There's a lot of that every year, but it really hit home this season. So I'm just so ready for the games to count. Just all of them. They're all going to count. That's cool. That's kind of how it should be. So excited for that. Do you feel the same, where it's just, it gets to be
it's like the first day of the regular season all over again, where you're building that anticipation we've had about. It feels longer this time, I think, in part because the discourse has been so exhaustive around tanking. And to be clear, there is a real issue going on. We've been talking about it, though, since before the All-Star break, which is incredibly early. And so it feels like the games haven't mattered for a while, even though technically that's not true. We are going through this protracted period of what you said about the schedule. I'm always ready. The first round of the playoffs is that good. It's that existential crisis excitement where it's, well, how am I supposed to? I have to watch every game of all 8 of these series. How, like, that's so much time, but you're, okay, it means something, and the adrenaline gets you going. My pet peeve about it, though, is it's gotten harder for me to at least analyze individual playoff matchups, because I want to have these baseline data points, and the regular season is increasingly, I'll say, either opaque or meaningless when it comes to try and formulate. Like, looking at the way the Celtics are defending the Cavs or the Knicks during the regular season, and it's one, how many players were missing games during that time, and two, Joe Mazzulla is going to do something psychopathic in the playoffs, and then Jason Tatum doesn't come back in the fold until 2/3 of the way through the season or whatever. That's what makes it difficult, but I guess also it's like a blank slate. But I, as someone who likes to have reference points, has become a difficulty of mine.
It's not just meaningless. Sometimes it's misleading, because I mean, I'm trying to think now of 2 games come to mind that I watched during this regular season fairly recently and thought to myself, okay, that's helpful. I feel like I got some of these data points you're talking about. One was that Denver San Antonio game last week, and the other was the Detroit San Antonio game 2 months ago now.
Couple of the San Antonio OKC games too.
Yeah, couple of those. But even those, somebody missed.
No, J-Dub. Yeah.
J-Dub missed at least, I can't remember
2, right?
now, but it was at least 1. It might have been 2. Yeah, so even those are just, they're not write-offs, but it's even as you're watching them, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is good information, but it's incomplete. So I don't know that I'm going to make any like sweeping judgments based on what I saw. But it's just, shocker. It's very rare to see 2 very good teams play each other at full strength and give a shit during the regular season.
Yep.
That's just where we are.
And even when they do, or even looking at the magical picture, let a team like the Wolves, to where they're just inherently Jekyll and Hyde, but they've been to the past 2 conference finals. And so that's a team you should be conditioned to doubt. Or last year, the Knicks record against really good opponents was atrocious, and they end up in the conference finals anyway. So even the Pacers, people understood that they kind of came on around Thanksgiving, and look what like no one was, this is an NBA Finals team. That's totally happening.
Right. So having said all that, what we're going to do today is just go. We're not going to talk matchups because we don't know them. So we're going to discuss each team that is going to feature in the playoffs, or play in, I guess, too. And you jump in whenever, but really just assess kind of how much is riding on the results of this postseason. And so every team is going to be viewed a little bit differently because they have different goals and different levels of expectations. So, a rousing success for one team might be a failure for another if you're just looking at how far they might make it. And the pressure comes in with like, what level of fallout are we talking if things don't go well? Is that how you're viewing it? I'm looking at it as like,
yeah,
bad result. What happens now? How severe might the repercussions be? How significant might the changes be?
Right. And I'm also looking at it through the lens of, well, what actually constitutes the bad result? Because if the bad result for a certain team is they only made it to the conference finals, that inherently is going to increase the pressure. Like the Wolves is another, not to keep going back to that. Well, they've been to 2 straight, like progress isn't linear, but if you don't make it to the conference finals or you make it again and it's not really competitive, that's for them, that is probably more of a failure than like if Charlotte makes it out of the play-in, but then gets trucked in 5 games in the first round.
Right. Yeah. It's all, we're going to discuss each team kind of on its own merits, because you can't just say, well, the pressure on the team that got eliminated in the first round is this, and the team that loses in the finals is that. It's just, it's going to have to be case by case, which is fine. But we have employed the use of Tier Maker to keep things nice and graphical and easy to understand.
Graphical sounds erotic. That's for the paywall, though. Stay tuned. Do you want to take us through the tier, or I'll take us through the tiers so the bottom tier, we're going in like order of least pressure to the most pressure. We have found money / just happy to be here. Then above that, so I guess that would make it is this tier 4 or tier 2?
I would just call it the bottom tier.
So the bottom tier was found money, just happened to be here. Up from that is it's getting a little hot in here. Following that, smack dab in the middle is it's time to have the talk. Above that is somebody is getting fired / traded. And then the tier with the utmost urgency is total obliteration. We're talking firings, trades, roster overhaul. Are they changing entire directions rather than just personnel, going from a playoff team to a rebuilding team? All cards are on that table. Do you have anything to add before I allow you to pick the first team that we talk about?
No, I think I'm ready to do it. I haven't thought about who I want to pick first, but let's start with one that I don't know, some people might be interested in. Let's do the Lakers. And we I want this to be collaborative. I don't want to be singularly in charge of putting this team in a tier.
I'm kind of a lone wolf. I played singles tennis in college, so I prefer not to.
Tells me everything I need to know about you. Were you a racket smasher? What's your reaction to a bad call, or did you? Okay, so talk about it.
For someone who never once came from money, the amount of expensive rackets that I went through was pretty reckless. I was a head case, and that's honestly why at points I got demoted in high school and college. It happened 2 doubles because I needed somebody to kind of. But I was a racket smasher, and I know this doesn't sound like a lot of money now, but like my rackets were $200, $300, and I don't know. I just apparently didn't. I was made of money apparently, even though I wasn't.
That makes me. I'm not sure how. I think that's endearing. I think it's endearing. You cared, sorry for caring. Maybe
I was Happy Gilmore without the happy ending, like with the victory at the end.
Got it.
Is really
got it.
Yeah.
Did you have okay? This is probably enough tennis talk, but what do we do with the Lakers here? Let's kind of, we'll get there in a roundabout way. Let's talk Lakers. So Luka Doncic's hamstring, like if he doesn't play, the pressure's low, right? Because this was a gap year anyway, and there will be no expectations for the Lakers to do anything. If he does play, I mean, you got to ask if he's going to be hobbled or not. Austin Reeves is also
the oblique injury.
Oblique injury. I think so. Just to anchor us a touch here, and we can't. I'm already feeling we're going to go super long, so I'm going to try to expedite this. I think they can't be bottom tier. Just because it's the Lakers, because you have LeBron, because there is like blow up potential just based on the nature of some of the contracts on the team and all that other stuff. Can we get them to at least time to have the talk?
Well, so I need to ask the question though of, does Luka Doncic's urgency to return kind of define all of this? As you mentioned, it's supposed to be a quasi gap year, but he's going to see the specialist or saw the specialist in Europe, the Luka Doncic of hamstrings, if you would.
Okay.
And
I would.
that implies that there's this real urgency for him to return. So shouldn't that be we're trying to bump it up? And we're because we look at it through the lens of there's a lot of placeholders on this roster. They could have cap space. They're going to have the low cap hold for Austin Reeves, and they're going to, whether it's via trade or free agency, they're going to add a really big name or a couple of higher impact players. At the same time, look at how competitive life cycles in the NBA kind of shift seemingly on whims at this point. I'm wondering if they're above time to have the talk, except I don't know who they would trade or fire. Does Rob Pelinka, is his, we're talking about a new ownership group. I know that, I know that Jeannie Buss is still considered the team governor, but you have the new ownership group. But is that, if we're looking at it, because JJ Redick not getting fired, and then who are you trading based off who's under contract of consequence that's still under contract? So my rambling talked myself into, you probably have them in the right tier. If anything, even though I asked to wonder whether they should be higher, is there a case for them to be lower? Because what is the talk? What is the change they're making other than we're using this flexibility to move on from LeBron James, which seems like it was always the plan?
Right. That's I'm glad you said that. That's the thing. Like the fact that LeBron did not get an extension, this just was, again, the fact that they didn't use their picks to trade for anybody. I don't feel like, so personally for Doncic, I understand the urgency of wanting to get back, wanting to disprove the narrative that like this guy doesn't hold up. That's part of the reason Dallas traded him. Insane trade, still never going to change that. But like, if he's hurt again for the playoffs, or it's not even that he didn't make it through the playoffs healthy, it's that he can't start them healthy. So personally, I understand the urgency for him. For the team, it's just behaved like this year is just whatever happens. Really what we're focused on is the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I can't get them all the way to someone's getting fired or traded, because one, who would that even be other than Pelinka, maybe, like you said. So I think they got to be, it right in the middle. I do think if you did move them, which, well, again, I think we should just put them in the middle tier now, and we can readdress like if things look wonky once we have more teams in the tiers. But that feels about right to me.
Yeah, because the talk in their case would be, it could be something other than the talk, but it's, well, what do we need around Luka to contend? Because right now it's, if you think that you have your second league creator in Austin Reeves, okay, done. Are we looking at a team that needs to have 3 new starters next season to be the actual contender that they want to be? And it'd be nice to have a baseline of what do Luka and Austin Reeves look like together in the playoffs. And if you don't get that, in theory, does that increase the pressure or buy you time? It feels.
I think it decreases the pressure just because you didn't get it.
Increase it because you're making these overarching decisions without that information.
Well, I mean, I think what you said is, so let's say, so we kind of preface this all by saying, like, if it goes bad, what does go bad look like for the Lakers? Because as it stands now, they're the 4 seed. They could be 5. They're not falling to 6. They're not climbing to 3. Well, they could get to 3. Unlikely as we're recording this. So a first round loss. I guess pertinent to know would be, did Luka play in that first round? Did Austin Reeves play? But if it's a first round loss, are you looking at this as, well, this season was a failure? Man, like, I don't think so. I don't think anybody came into this season, let alone the Lakers themselves, really, really seriously in their heart of hearts saying, we're a conference finalist, or we're going to at least win a series. I don't think. So like,
we certainly didn't.
We certainly didn't. That's for sure. So I think, like, if they advance out of the first round, you can't say it's found money, because like, we have Luka. We could, who knows? Like, he's taking teams to the conference finals and the finals that, with that were imperfect. But I don't know.
Honestly, I'm wondering if they need to be bumped down a tier, and that's not. It's just like, even the vitals. So their record, where they could have, if Luka never gets injured, where do they end up in the West? But they have a bottom 10 point differential against top 10 teams this year. They're 11-16 against those squads. If you want to simplify it even further, their record against above 500 opponents on the season is 23-25. So they're not even a 500 team against 500 and above opponents. I don't think they're better. You and I didn't give them enough credit leading into it. We didn't just cake it up. They're going to win a ton of games because Luka is Luka. But I don't, like, who is expecting them to actually make noise in the playoffs. I think if they matched up against the Rockets and they have Luka, that is the only team that they would be favored against in good, like uh, within relative standing. The betting odds because of the public movement. Sure. Yeah.
I say we leave them. And
Okay.
then I'm open to moving them down. I'm not open to moving them up after we get a few more teams in here. So who do you want to get to?
I want to nominate Grant. This should be a quick one. That's why I'm not. The Charlotte Hornets.
Okay.
Play-in tournament. They're gonna make, just with what's going on in Philly with the Joel Embiid injury. Like, there's a chance Charlotte could still just get to the 7th spot, which is kind of insane. They've been one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the league since Thanksgiving. I keep seeing these stats since post. Like, no, this has been a 60-game sample size or whatever of the Hornets just being good. I don't know that there's much of a discussion to have other than this is found money. They should just be happy to be here because they will have some big decisions to make. This Brandon Miller's extension. What do you want to do with? Do you want to upgrade? It seems in the front court, Moussa Diabate's fine. Ryan Kalkbrenner's giving them good minutes, but you probably could stay if you wanted to. Based off what happens in the play-in or the playoff series, you'll know if you think Moussa Diabate can be your center of the future. Regardless, you want to get another like combo forward in there, someone who's better than Miles Bridges, better than Tijan Shalon's trajectory, better than, we're going to downsize to Grant Williams at the 5.
Yeah.
So they want this information, but I can't talk myself at like, what are we going to talk about trading LaMelo Ball or Brandon Miller based on how the playoffs go?
I struggle to think of a scenario short of LaMelo driving his car onto the court during a game that would cause the Hornets to really reevaluate where things are, right? Like if they end up coming out of the play-in, if they lose in the play-in, I think they all look at each other and say, pretty good season, fellas. Like arrows pointing up. If they make it into the first round and they get swept, same thing. If they win a series, then even then it's not like pressure is going to, like new pressure is piled on because they won a series and now it's something like, whoa, let's capitalize. You don't know how long the windows, even that I don't think is realistic. So they might be the ultimate found money team here because they weren't supposed to be good this year at all. They were good because all their young players kicked ass and stayed healthy, relatively speaking. And they got clean books and they got a lot of, this is a found money team. There's like it doesn't matter what happens. Really.
They're a found money team that has like looking at the way the matchups could game out, even with Cade Cunningham back, I don't hate the way they match up with the Pistons.
Yeah. Well, they've played like a contender for like 3 months. So they match up well with pretty much everybody. So they could, I guess maybe what you would say is if they win a series or two, which seems crazy to say or two, happening. It's just like, then there's pressure next year, but that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about this season.
Will I know mine won't because it's May, but will your thoughts on what they need to do this offseason, looking at the level of moves that you want them to make, will it increase based off their playoff success or fail? You know what I mean? So if they get bounced in the play-in or lose in the first round, are you more likely to say, no, you need to hit the Giannis button or go after Trey Murphy than if they win a playoff series or somehow push the Pistons to, as an example, 6 to 7 games? What would, or will it just not change? I think my baseline for them is no, there needs to be a home run swing this summer.
I think, see, it's interesting. I think you do have to keep that in mind more now than before, just because I think we all agree that windows just seem to be open for less time than everybody expects them to be. So if you're good to very good, which I think minimally describes the Hornets, you do need to be at least sort of opportunistically open to the type of trade the push the pedal down type of trade. For me, I think their needs are just so obvious, right? Like the Miles Bridges spot just has to be better, and center upgrade would be great. You need more defenders because your offense is going to be awesome. It's like the needs are understood. The positions you might try to address them at are understood. So I don't know what we're going to see in whatever shape their playoff situation takes that would change that. So I don't know that I'm at the like go get a Giannis phase of analysis.
Depending on cost, I would look at it. But do you know what they actually need to hope for?
You consider Giannis?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I consider. Well, he is old. Like depending, it's fair to say his next contract and
it's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
It's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
You could make a case that his current contract has been no great shakes when you look at how unhealthy he's been for the playoffs.
Right.
But what the Hornets this would be the perfect outcome for the Hornets. They need to root for things to go badly or well enough. I don't know which. We'll talk about them in Detroit or Houston for one of those two teams to get in the Giannis sweepstakes, and then you come in as like a third team and see if you can pry away Asar Thompson or Amen Thompson if they're the player that's out. Those would be like the ideal types of fit, or on a smaller scale, like a Tari Eason would be a great fit for them. Your turn to pick, though. The Hornets that was way too much time on a team that's just happy to be here, but I wanted to give them some shine because I'm an unofficial Hornets fan. I think.
All right. Man. Well, okay. Let's go back to the West and let's take the Rockets. Because we kind of discussed them a little bit as we were getting into the Lakers.
I was telling them to trade Amen Thompson.
They might
Charlotte.
Well, I'll take either Thompson, frankly, on Charlotte, just whichever one you prefer. Asar feels like a better fit, but who knows? Let's take the Rockets. So youngish team other than Kevin Durant, would you agree they've been disappointing this year in a lot of important respects, even though the Fred VanVleet of it all kind of gives you some cover?
Yes.
I'm at a minimum, they are at the talk level of pressure, and I'm considering a move up to somebody's getting fired / traded. If there were a tier in between those, I'd feel great about it, but we got to choose one. Where are you leaning for the Rockets?
For me, specifically,
you're going lower. I can tell. I just know it. You're going lower.
You don't know me at all then.
Okay, great.
I think they should be in the somebody's getting traded tier because you don't inherently, I know their trade deadline says otherwise, you don't trade for Kevin Durant. You don't extend Kevin Durant without operating on this incredibly urgent timeline. You're past we're going to recalibrate each offseason and we're going to try to make these incremental changes. Now, they do have the big variable of Fred VanVleet could be healthy next year. What if Steven Adams stays healthier next year? What if Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd all continue to get better? I'm open to trying to cake in internal improvement, but while the offense has been better lately, the fact that they were at one point, VanVleet or no VanVleet, so dependent on Steven Adams in the year 2026,
right,
makes me uneasy. And the bigger thing here is you need to look at what they've done this year, largely on offense, largely when we're looking at the fourth quarters in crunch time. And yes, lately it's been better. It's March and April basketball. Let's relax here.
Also, that and look, if a critical flaw defines your whole season and everyone has talked about it all year, that you just don't have enough options to score against a good defense when it matters, I don't care what happens in the last 6 weeks of the season.
It's a good point too. And the other thing as well is we don't want to talk about it necessarily, but what happens if next year's the year, age 38 season, Kevin Durant isn't one of the 15 best players in basketball? Right. I don't think you can look at this team, should you get bounced. Now, it matters where they get bounced, but honestly, anything short of the conference finals, and just given how many people are probably going to pick them to lose their first round series, you have to turn around, especially with Amen Thompson's extension eligible, and then all of a sudden Tari Eason's entering restricted free agency. You kind of, I think the urgency is high. I think they need to be in that penultimate tier.
I agree. I can't get to the top tier. You've definitely swayed me. They're not in the Lakers tier in the middle. It's somebody's getting fired / traded. I think, look, it's very clear that fundamentally this team's offense is not good enough, right? And that's personnel. I think it's fair to say it's just the lack of spacing from several very important players, mainly Şengün and Amen Thompson, means that you could but they're not going to address the situation, I don't think, by trading either of those guys. But how much of this is on Ime Udoka's offensive tactics? The guys that he's playing? I don't think he's getting fired, but I do think it's fair to wonder, based on kind of too, what happened when he was in Boston, is this the guy that you're ever going to get just a really wired, tight, functional, well executed offense out of? Because maybe I don't know. Again, that's a little, to me, that rises above the level, having discussed it now, of we got to have the talk. The talk's been happening all season. Everybody knows what the issue is.
The question is is it happening inside Houston's front office?
It has to be. They have to know.
I know.
So yeah. So I like them in that second to highest tier. That feels about right. And like I think, as you said, the fact that I don't know what unless there's just a decimated Lakers team, everyone's going to pick the Rockets to lose in the first round. So like, and that's bad because in addition to all these guys coming up,
is it
that you said are extension eligible, Şengün's already paid it, and so is Jabari Smith Jr. Generally speaking, those deals look pretty good, but it's like we're past the point of look at all these young cheap guys the Rockets have. They just need to figure out which combinations work, which was the narrative for like 2 years at least. Now it's these guys have developed to the point where we have a pretty good sense of what their strengths and weaknesses are. And these weaknesses are what's holding us back. So something does have to change, I think, especially if they lose in the first round in the way that you would expect, which is they don't score in fourth quarters. It's a minimum of the second highest tier.
Based on everything that's happened this year, if nothing changes in the playoffs, you can't look at this team and say if Fred VanVleet was healthy, everything would have been fine. You don't get to say that.
You can't.
What's the next team we should talk about here? Let's go with. Am I going to pick another play-in team? I might. Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. Grant,
do we have to?
A little bit.
Okay, fine.
I don't know. No one expects them. They're so banged up. No Jimmy Butler. Is Kristaps going to be healthy will be the question. Steph is playing again. That's a good sign, which leads me to believe, even when looking at the teams in the Western Conference play-in, it's all right. Like Phoenix, I'd probably have them above Golden State. I get the Clippers. You could just see the Warriors winning 2 games. If Steph is going to play, you could see them winning 2 games. That being said, I think the prevailing consensus is that they will not make the playoffs. They will lose at some point in the play-in, one of those 2 games. What does that do? This can't be found money because Steph and Draymond are older. Al Horford's older. Jimmy Butler we don't know when he's going to play. Might not be until 2027, but he's older. They went hard after Giannis. There were 4 first-round picks on the table, were the report for him. I guess losing in the play-in doesn't technically change anything, but what is the pressure level seeing what Steph still is? Comes back from injury, he's just still flying around all over the court. What does that do? I'm going to give you the floor. I know where I kind of want to put them, but I'm curious to see where you will put them.
This is it's hard. I think like part of me wants to say that it doesn't really matter what happens to them in the playoffs. Their objectives will be the same over the summer, which is I think they'll re-engage on Giannis. Who knows what happens with Porzingis, who's entering free agency. Steph is not going anywhere. So you're Steve Kerr, though, I mean, I don't know if that adds pressure, but it would be like a side door into like somebody's getting fired / traded because Steve Kerr might just retire. But I suppose that were they to advance, say they win a first round series somehow, which by the way, I agree with you. I don't think they'll make it out of the play-in. They could, don't think it's likely. If they win a round, is that something that makes Steve Kerr say maybe one more? Because
if they beat the Thunder, that's the
right. If you beat the Thunder, I think I forgot that's who it would have to be, or the Spurs, either one.
No, OKC locked up the league's best record, so it would. Oh,
there you go. Yeah. So whatever it is, I think it's weird because So do you agree that like whatever happens in the play-in or the playoffs, barring some miraculous run, I don't feel like that really changes what they intend to try to do over the summer. So they can't be above the middle, but they also clearly not found money. It's not clearly getting hot in here because it's like, I don't know what to do with them.
The found money would be Jimmy Butler. Like that's the found money is Jimmy Butler's injured. You were never going to go anywhere if one of him or Steph or Draymond wasn't playing. That would be the found money argument. I approach it from the perspective of, I'm just saying, like,
no. I was getting you're right, and I think what that means is we needed another tier, which is nobody expected anything from you anyway, which is like the very bottom.
Then we would need another tier that said our expectations were low, but holy fuck, should have been
right. Okay, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, I think you need to have. I'm at the point where they probably need to have the talk, because I look at it like this: if you can't make it out of the play-in, with this Suns, Jimmy. If you're not better than the Blazers are now, then the Clippers are now, then the Suns are now. What are you, if you're going to obliterate your asset base to go after Giannis, which is not really that's not going to be contingent, like you said, upon what happens in the postseason. You've reached a natural inflection point. Draymond has a player option. Steph and Jimmy Butler are going to be on expiring deals. Steve Kerr's contract is up. It's time to have probably the highest stakes talk possible, where it's what are we, you don't, I keep coming, this is why it's tough to put them there, because no, you shouldn't trade Steph Curry. At the same time, I'm just like, why isn't everything on the table here? If you one Giannis away from even being in the upper echelon of title contenders, it's easy to say yes, but I keep coming back to Giannis doesn't really make Steph any less important. You need someone who makes Steph less important. I think Jimmy Butler might do that more than Giannis does. Regardless, neither of those two are, one, super young, and then in Giannis's case and Jimmy Butler's case, billboards for excellent health.
Yeah.
The stakes here to me are fairly high, if only because if you can't make it out of the play-in, which again, I do not expect them to, it kind of reinforces that what are you trying to preserve at this point?
You could get to somebody's getting traded / fired if they just, like, that's the thing is, I was about to say, if it's clear that they're totally overmatched, which could happen in the play-in. It's possible. And then you're talking about trading Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green, which I think they're going to talk about anyway, like if they, so, because how else are you getting Giannis, or how else are you getting involved in anything that's consequential?
That's like its own separate discussion though, because it's Giannis, right? It's not like most teams, unless you are the Thunder, unless you're like the Thunder, the Spurs, how many other teams are on that? You're not going to not check in on Giannis unless your playoffs are a disaster.
Sure. But for the Warriors, I feel like Giannis is like that last straw,
gasp.
Whatever the metaphor I can't come up with of like, it's the last thing you're going to try to reach for before you concede. Okay, we're done with, as we've existed for 15 years or whatever. I think so we're back in Rockets territory for very different reasons, where it's either time to have the talk or somebody's getting fired / traded. I'm leaning time to have the talk, because I can't get myself to the point where the postseason result meaningfully changes what they were going to do anyway. So like, you know what I mean? So that to me lowers the pressure in a weird way.
The only tier you can't talk me into with this team is total obliteration. I think, because they're just not going to trade Steph.
Anywhere. Right.
And honestly, maybe you could talk me into it, but your last point is the most salient one to me. What happens in the playoffs isn't going to serve as this major referendum on what they were doing anyway. It might make it more appealing to total obliteration would mean Steph. The playoffs could determine, well, how aggressive do we go after Giannis, or do we look at moving on from Draymond or Steve Kerr? So total obliteration is really the only tier that I couldn't be talked into.
Right. I think that's, and like maybe that day comes, when finally Steph and the front office agree,
what would be the team? What's the Steph team? If one did, I'm going to do this. This is so Bill Simmons, right? Just what's the team that would come trade for Steph Curry if he decided he wanted out, or the Warriors decided they wanted to trade him, or both? Charlotte's the obvious one, but what's the other? What's the other team?
Great question. I mean, it's so there's nothing that comes close to Charlotte as far as like a no-brainer type of thing. But like, I mean, just as far as a team that would need, like Detroit, like how nasty is Detroit if it has Steph and all that defense and Cade finally not having to do I don't know, it's got to be a team that it has to be a team that is like, if we get Steph, we are the conference favorite. And I don't know how the West makes that hard. Because the Thunder and Spurs are just going to be there. Minnesota that's a fun one. I hear they've needed a point guard for some time. Detroit. I don't know where else you look really. I believe he was born in Ohio, so maybe he's going to
Cleveland. Just keeps getting older. Trade Donovan Mitchell for Steph.
LeBron and Steph together in Cleveland. Let's go.
Cleveland, and they traded Evan Mobley to make it happen. They're just
and then they get a combined 70 games.
Houston.
From those two guys. Houston. Okay, they could use
reunite with Kevin Durant.
I think you gotta, do they want to unseat Reed Shepherd? That's a tough one. All right, I think we've landed on a good team. You got to pick one here. We've rode through four.
I did
in
pick
like
one. I picked the
35 minutes.
Warriors.
Oh shit.
So
Okay, I'll pick one. I'm trying to find like an easy one to knock out here. Okay, how about Atlanta? So they kind of did their soft reset by trading Trey. Everybody seems pretty happy with the results here. Jalen Johnson ascends, proves himself at least as a number one option on a pretty good team. Not sure if he can be that on a true contender. They're not found money, but I have a hard time. Well, maybe they are found money. I don't see how we put them any higher than it's getting hot in here. And so just for the sake of argument, if they have a bad postseason result, which would be at the moment losing to the Knicks in the first round, or maybe losing to Cleveland or Toronto, depending on how this shakes out. I mean, if they fell to the play-in, I feel like that would be disappointing, but I don't think that's going to happen.
They're locked into 6, I believe.
Oh, good. Okay.
They're not going to fall.
They have the tiebreaker. Yeah. So they might be found money because they kind of made the big move they needed to make, and everybody feels good about the team.
I think I'm with you because had you said, look at the season, had you said the Kristaps Porzingis trade pans out this way, Trae Young ends up getting traded or plays an X amount of games, where would you have put the Hawks? It wouldn't have been in 6th place.
No, yeah, right.
No one would have done that. We were high on their offseason. I think I might have had them. I definitely hit their over, I believe, and I probably missed on it. With that being said, it's found money because what changed? If they lose in the first round, it looks worse if it's a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Knicks, but do the needs change? We want to upgrade the CJ McCollum spot just because you have Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson. Maybe you could get better or heftier at center with other than Onyeka Okongwu and Jock Landale's there. But that's going to be what you look at. I don't even know. Zachary Risichet getting a DMP on his birthday was kind of cruel, but also really funny. Like maybe the talk would be, well, we need that. That's going to be the talk regardless. If he doesn't factor in to your playoff rotation heavily, or he isn't impactful in a good way, if he does play a bunch, I don't think anything changes based on if anything, the deeper they go, maybe we would need to, even that to me would be found money. But if they go deep into the playoffs, maybe that's what ratchets up the pressure for them to do something because it's, Jalen Johnson's on his bargain deal now. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's this cheap now.
Right. No, yeah, I do think that kind of the pressure that results from unforeseen or surprising success is not what we're talking about. Like that you would love to have pressure going into next year because of how well you did. So yeah, I'm glad we talked that out. I almost wanted to put them higher, but because the Hornets are so found money that it felt like, well, can we put anybody on that level? I think the Hawks are close enough to where that makes sense.
Let's talk about what's a good team here to talk about. Okay, let's go to the Western Conference and let's talk about your Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay, so
they're in such a weird spot because everyone pegged. I'm not sure if it's because I don't think it was just because they went from James Harden to Darius Garland, but the Ivica Zubac trade seemed to imply to a lot of people, neither of us, to be clear, that they were just kind of packing it in and this was another gap year. And it was, I don't know that they were better off, but there's a significant chance that they improved their future outlook without giving up too much in the present while making those trades. There's pressure here just because you're going to have a ton of flexibility this summer. Kawhi Leonard will be entering the last year of his deal. You've clearly had this, if not 2026, a 2027 cap space plan. At the same time, when you start a season, a trillion games under 500, and you do trade your offensive engine, so to speak, and you trade your starting center, you should take away some pressure, especially in the West. Right. But I do think there's real pressure for them to make it out of the play-in at least, though, right?
I mean, maybe, but that's as far as I'd go because I do agree that like the Garland trade, I mean, kind of made under some level of duress, but that's like, I think you just do that. Right. That's one. It's kind of like how we were talking about the like Memphis's side of the Bane trade, where it's like, I think you just got to say yes to that. Like, well, regardless of what your direction is going to be, that's just a return I think you kind of take. So, and Garland feels like that. And even the Zubac trade, like if you get the number 5 pick from Indiana out of this because it's top 4 protected for Zubats, or you get a 2031 unprotected, like I think you just do that. So it's like that's part of it, but then implicit in that is like you don't do those trades, I don't think, if it's like we're going for it this year. We believe we can win a series
for sure.
You know, we can't break this up. It's kind of like, well, since we're not
you know,
sure how good we are, we should definitely take these positive value deals, right?
And you know what's tough for me too is that the pressure when you're looking at, and I'll say this more about the West than the East, but as a play-in team in the West, the pressure kind of ends at, and this is hollow, can we win that for Phoenix and LA specifically? Can we win that first play-in game so we just avoid the Thunder in the first round? And that's even having to face the Spurs. You're not going to necessarily feel that good, but I think you feel better about facing Wemby and the Spurs than you do about the Thunder still in round 1, right?
Yeah, but for me, it's kind of like you're in huge trouble either way.
Right.
So yeah. So do we finally have it's not found money exactly, just because this is mostly a veteran team, and at least at the beginning of the year they were like a 50-win possibility. So maybe this is it's getting hot in here tier.
They're like
you don't have anybody in that yet.
If we could change the descriptor, it'd be like it's a getting weird in here.
Yeah,
because I don't know if the pressure ratchets up considerably, but you are going to have to, like, you have to have some type of, like, this, what are they doing becomes the question, right? It's not, we need to have the talk. It's, we need to existentially figure out where we go from here in general.
Yeah, I think that feels right. Plus, we needed a team in that tier. Okay, my turn. Man, as I'm just staring at empty total obliteration, and I'm not sure who I'm ready to put up there yet. Let's go. Well, they did just jump out to me. Let's talk Cavaliers. Just right off rip.
Wait, can I want to point out what you said before about the Clippers James Harden trade made under some level of duress. You said, if you go back to every James Harden trade, both sides are always operating under some level of duress, because it takes a level of duress to move James Harden, but you also need to be under duress to acquire him.
Exactly. You can't be completely secure and rational and say,
right,
time to add James Harden to this mix, baby. Like he's gonna. So I would say, just at a minimum, Cleveland needs to be somebody's getting fired / traded.
Yep.
And we might need to talk ourselves up to total obliteration. Now, what is that? What does going bad look like for the Cavs? Losing in the first round, which
and
would
second,
be real. I mean, because then if you're losing in the first round, you're losing to either Toronto or Atlanta, which at least coming into this season were not anywhere near the class of team you thought you were.
Correct.
You've also not fast tracked, but you've accelerated your timeline by swapping Darius Garland for a player 10 years older than him and James Harden. Harden's arrival comes with like a 6-month expiration date, right? Before things get horrible, and just if past is precedent. So if they lose in the first round, we have to talk about the Donovan Mitchell of it all too. You have to talk about, is Jared Allen going to be someone that's here?
Sorry, don't we need to talk about that?
You trade, like, there's all of it.
Don't we need to talk about that even if they lose in the second round?
I think sure. You need to talk about that. You need to talk about the Harden risk of it all and the Mitchell side of it. Like, you might have to trade him because he might just say, I'm not extending, like, type of thing, right? So I mean, I think I'm pretty comfortable going, this is total obliteration. Because it's not just one person that's gonna move,
right?
I don't think.
Well, because everyone feels like they'll be on the chopping block, whether it's because the Cavs put them there, where depending on what happens in the playoffs, there's going to be a push. I've done a couple spots for Cleveland Sports Talk Radio over the past few months, and fans are like responses on social media were angry that I said they shouldn't trade Evan Mobley for Giannis Antetokounmpo this offseason. And that one is shocking to me, but apparently I'm not plugged into sports talk radio fandom and how they view the Cavs, but that's going to be a discussion it doesn't. And I don't even care what the matchups end up being. I don't even care if it goes to a game 7 in the second round. I think there are people that are going to campaign for it, even if they make the conference finals. And so this is total obliteration for me, because the Mobley factor could amble its way on there. Donovan Mitchell could request out. You've already laid out the James Harden stakes. Even if they decide to make a smaller move, it's well, are we going to stay in the second apron? Are we going to trade Jared Allen? Is that the upgrade we need if we're not going to move Evan Mobley? Everything with the exception of are Kobe. I assume Kenny Atkinson is safe. Is Kobe Altman safe? I'm going to assume. Maybe not. I mean, when you trade Darius Garland for James Harden, maybe not.
Yeah. So I think I'm glad you pointed out the cost. We haven't really talked on any of these other teams yet, maybe because we haven't done top tier in terms of pressure. Like that's a huge factor in the likelihood of something changing here, because they're spending a ton, and like the bill is not getting smaller next year. The biggest contract coming off the books belongs to Dean Wade, who's making $6 million. Like,
and who they need.
Jared Allen has an extension. Jared Allen makes $8 million more next year. Evan Mobley goes to 50. Mitchell's at 50. Like
Keon Ellis is a free agent as well, too, who they trade. I don't know how much they value him, but that's someone. Right. Him and Dean Wade are making under $9 million combined this season. Both of them are probably going to be making more than $9 million a piece next season.
Here's the other thing. They've already operated at somebody's getting fired or traded because they changed the coach. Like Kenny Atkinson is a new coach, relatively speaking. And then they made the Garland to Harden.
Honestly, we're over talking. They hit the James Harden button. You're in total obliteration territory.
It's the James Harden button. That's right. And like, yeah, right. I was just going to add, we have over talked this one. I was just going to add, like, Mitchell's on this team because he signed that last extension because he didn't have other great options, not necessarily because he loved what was here. Right. So like second time around, if he doesn't sign this extension this offseason, like, you gotta trade him. Right? Like that's So yeah, they've already passed through all the other steps. So this has got to be the total obliteration. Easy peasy.
We're up to my pick. I think this one will be easy peasy too, and I'm gonna even throw them in the tier. I'm gonna put the Suns in found money. I know they don't have a ton of draft equity moving forward, but at the same time, it's sort of like Matt Ispia pointed this out. All of us picked them to be bad, and it turns out they might just make being the 7th seed in the Western Conference. I know that you like 44 wins, 45 wins, whatever it ends up being. It doesn't look like a ton, but relative to what the top 6 in the West looks like, that to be here is a big deal. And you navigated injuries to Dylan Brooks. Jalen Green missed most of the year. Your center rotation was in flux for a lot of the season. It's still found money to me. They're going to always be under some level of pressure just because if you want to keep – I understand Devin Booker wants to be a one-team guy. I'm not trying to push the Devin Booker trade talk. I don't know. You've evaded the should we trade Devin Booker talk, I think, for at least another offseason by having this year.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Right. I mean, you could almost – the Hawks don't fit, but as far as like belonging in the found money tier, just if you won 15 plus more games than we thought you were going to, just your playoff pressure is pretty low, right? Like the Suns have been among the biggest surprises in the league. Although now, the hot new thing is to point out that opponent 3-point shooting against the Suns has just been ridiculously unlucky. So their defense actually isn't that good, and they're going to fall apart.
Let me make the counter that they tailor their defense to decide who is taking those 3. That's always the rebuke from.
Yeah, let me think about that. Yeah. So anyway,
honestly, I think, when you watch Dylan Brooks or Jordan Goodwin and even Oso Iguodala, like, they just have a bunch of defensive sociopaths on the team, and I think that's why their defense. I've decided that's why their defense is.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have some nut jobs out there. Yeah, easy. I think that's totally right. Good found money for your team.
I don't want to spend too much time on them because they are found money, but this offseason is. I think they're going to look to, can we get more offense out of some of the front court spots? Maybe we trust Malawach as the center of the future now. Do we want to bring back Mark Williams? Those are all sort of mid-tier type decisions. I don't know what could happen in the playoffs that. For the Suns, play-in or playoffs, for me to think they need to do something else.
No, and Frank, they can't do a whole lot else. So that removes pressure in its own way. All right, let's just talk about the Sixers. So
do we have to?
I mean, that's so the appendicitis for Embiid seems like he's not going to be a playoff factor.
Can I just say I feel bad.
I do too.
For him.
That sucks.
I honestly, I hate that it's being fed to me just because I have to be on Twitter for work at points. The people that make jokes or think that Joel Embiid is actively playing basketball, even if you're trying to be hyperbolic and make it seem like this is somehow his fault, like, what are we? I fucking hate the stuff that's being fed into when I open my Twitter app. Fucking
right.
Like this is just sad at this point.
It sucks.
Like I just feel bad.
Right. It's objectively like it's unfortunate. It's not like he has no agency in this. It's just a bad thing happened to him. So I don't know. There's not really room for
the
me.
amount of people that think NBA players don't ever want to play basketball is just way higher than it should be, because it just makes no sense.
So I mean, you have to just view that as, well, I don't know that anyone expected a ton out. There was like a little glimmer there when George came back. Maxey was healthy. Edgecombe was playing well. Embiid looked pretty good, at least on offense, and slightly better on defense as the season went on, where you could say, all right, if they're a 6th seed and they run into the Knicks or whoever, like that's, anything could happen. No, even then, nobody is viewing them as a team likely to make a conference final. So you remove Embiid from that. I think their performance in the postseason, just nobody expects anything other than an easy first round loss at minimum, and maybe they don't make it out of the play-in. That said, they got 2 of the worst contracts in the league on the books. People seem to be upset with Daryl Morey. There's some amount of pressure just because, but it's not like necessarily related to what happens in this postseason in particular, if that makes sense. Like just the nature of your old expensive guys failing again for, in this case, reasons like largely out of their control. Like, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Is it time to have the talk? Is that the lowest we can get? I can't go found money or
what's the talk though? Because if the talk is, do we include first round picks to get off of Embiid's contract? I don't even know if that's a talk you can entertain.
Okay. So you're leaning, it's getting the tier below that. You're leaning towards the 2 of the lower tier.
It's where you have to kind of ask, do we kind of just not factor in Joel Embiid anymore? And this is going to be more of a prolonged, not rebuild, but sort of middle build. And that's the conversation you're having, because I don't think that you could just trade Joel Embiid without including first round. With his extension that he signed doesn't kick in until next year.
No way. Yeah, I agree.
So are you having that would be the talk? Because what else are you doing? What's the talk then for this organization?
Plus, you've got Maxey. Everybody's enamored with Edgecombe, I think justifiably. So there's this kind of second timeline that's in place. Maybe they're with the Clippers in the second from the bottom tier. The Embiid thing is just took the legs out. So like I said, nobody expects anything from this team. So I think that's fair. I don't love it, but I think you've talked me out of the middle tier there.
Let's talk about, I feel like I've been picking a lot of the easy teams. Let's talk about the Boston Celtics.
Fascinating.
In theory, maybe finishing second in the Western Conference should be found money when you consider Tatum missed most of the year. Not only they overturned their roster during the offseason, they then did a bunch of tax ducking maneuvers and transactions. They're playing the 10-day contract game post-trade deadline to duck back under the tax. It has to be higher than found money, though, right? Because now you kind of look at this roster and you wonder, well, what's the end game here? Like, if you were to make a trade, if you're Boston, your best matching salary, if you don't want to trade Derek White, is Sam Hauser or Peyton Pritchard.
Right. Well, I think I'm receptive to the found money part of it, because this was supposed to be a gap year. We thought they would be bad or mediocre at best. But the reality is, don't you think most people view them as the team most likely to make the finals in the East now? Like,
yes,
I think that's where we are. So I think you've got to sort of throw out the preconceived stuff and just evaluate Boston as it is. And that's to say, if they don't make the conference finals, it's a disappointment. But what is that? We're concerned about fallout, right? So like if they lose in the first round, it would be very surprising to me. But what happens? You're not gonna fire Joe Mazzulla. You're not going to trade Tatum or Brown or Derek White.
Well, hold on. If they lose in the first round of the Hornets, is it that surprising?
No. We're going to be pro Hornets at all times. But you get what I'm getting at? Like, we've gone from, there's a found money element to you're a title threat. You can't lose until the conference finals at worst. and then it's like, well, but I don't know what to do with this team. I lean towards the higher end. I'm leaning higher end pressure wise because they're really good. They should win. They should advance far.
But also, yeah, at the same time, if they don't, what is going to be the reaction?
That's the question. And I think the answer is it's kind of like the Warriors.
People say,
that,
you punted on the ability to get a Pacers type pick. Well, we didn't make it to the conference finals this season. Was
no
bust or a waste?
You got two guys making over $50 million. There are there's no punting.
No, I'm not saying there, but there was punting because they were supposed. What's happening in Boston this year is objectively cool. So I'm not arguing in favor that they should have tanked. But hindsight, I already see people twisting themselves into, if they lose in the second round to the Knicks or something, if they lose in the second round or they even lose in the conference finals, I could see some people saying we already missed Jason Tatum for most of it. It was cool seeing Jaylen Brown go ham for a little bit and seeing these players emerge, and Baylor Shireman is apparently going to drill 1 trillion threes sometimes. And, look at the minutes we got Hugo Gonzalez and what Namias Cade has done. There'll be people who will appreciate that, but there's also going to be the element of, well, what was all this for? Right. We didn't get a high draft pick now, so we burned that opportunity. That might be, does that mean it's time to have the talk? And by the talk, I mean irrational takes are going to be fired off about the Celtics?
God, I don't know. As you were talking, I was ready to go back down to found money again, because you're right. No one thought anything was going to come of this season. And so just because they look like a contender now, I think here it is. Ultimately, they're not going to do anything drastic if they have a disappointing postseason. Because Jason Tatum's not even necessarily supposed to be playing at all still at this point. So I'm tempted to just hot take it and go all the way back down to found money after I started out trying to talk them up to something higher. Because nothing's going to happen. Nothing. You're not firing or trading anybody. What talk would you even have?
It is found money. I think that there's going to be to me, it's found money, but I think there's going to be just a level of discourse where what was the point?
Okay.
And it's now you have all this information on other players, and they do have, what do they have beneath they're projected to be $16 million beneath the tax this summer, not including any free agents they might want to re-sign, but that's them just being able to add a mid-level player is a big deal in itself. So I think it's found money there. Can I nominate? Right. I don't want to give this shine. I don't even remember who posted it, but could I nominate one of the worst social media takes of all time that I saw?
I would love it.
So Tyrese Halliburton posted that he was playing 5-on-5 again. I'm sure you saw that, right? There was someone who quoted his post and said, this is kind of proof that Jason Tatum is a loser. And it was, he rushed back instead of spending more time with his family. He's the one that has a kid.
Dan, this is exhibit A of why you don't need to. This is the idiot yelling at you from across the street that you're allowed to ignore this person.
I didn't engage with it. I don't dunk on people, but I'm just this is what, I'm sorry, this is what, and I have to be on Twitter for part of this podcast, by the way. You're welcome, Grant.
My mental health thanks you
myself
every day that I don't have to engage with that stuff. I appreciate you.
I'm going to start FaceTiming you when I'm in the fetal position under my desk because of the things that I have seen and read. But that's the whole point of it. I don't engage with it, but it made me angry enough to just be why is this? And yet here I am, and and most of the engagement is people calling this dude an idiot, which they absolutely were, but that's the entire point. But it honestly, even by the standards of where you have to twist yourself into a pretzel, for engagement, this was almost impressive.
I was just going to say, I almost respect it in how insane it is to say that.
Jason Tatum returned early from Achilles injury makes him a bad father. Column.
Just great take. Clip that. Great take. Glad. I'm surprised you think that, Dan, but that's fine. I guess we'll just move on.
It's your pick, by the way.
Okay. Man, we really landed on found money. I think that's right for Boston. Okay, let's do Denver. So you trade MPJ. I think you can't say MPJ. You can't. No, I'm setting the stage.
You trade for MPJ?
I'm painting a picture. You traded MPJ. Don't think you get to say he would have done in Denver what he did in Brooklyn. I do think you get to say the Nuggets made themselves less dangerous with Cam Johnson in that spot in the interest of getting cheaper, gave up that unprotected pick, paid Christian Brown. I'm just listing mistakes now. So there is a significant amount of pressure on Denver because Jokic, I think this season looked vulnerable, which is insane to say because he's going to lead the league in rebounds and assists and average 29 a game. And he's
why
still
are you like you're like it's a troll? That's a fact that matters.
Well, I'm just saying like the defense and the he finally missed time. Like, so that right there sort of should be telling Denver it's time. Like, you don't know how much longer this guy is going to be this guy. I think it'll be a while, but that's one a piece of the sort of the pressure puzzle here. And this is a team that's like that won a title that is really at this point is more kind of trying to hang on as opposed to trying to like get better. So to me, at a minimum, this is tier 4. This is somebody's getting fired or traded if they get bounced, say in the first round, for example. To me, that would be the really bad result. If you run up against the Thunder or the Spurs and you lose, which might not happen. Denver looked pretty good. Like Denver looks to be able to play against both of those teams. I don't think anybody's going to go nuts if the Spurs or Thunder beat Denver in a series. If Denver loses to anybody else, I think it is a pretty big problem. You're never going to have total obliteration. That's off the table. Jokic goes nowhere. I think Murray goes nowhere.
Well, hold on. I'm just asking questions, not advocating for it. Do you see what happens in the playoffs impacting his decision whether to sign his extension this offseason?
I just normally you might say yeah, but with him and there having been just nothing close, obviously, to like Giannis level rumblings. This is you might even say like Jokic there's been less speculation that I would call credible about Jokic leaving Denver than there has been about Steph leaving Golden State. Like I'm not ready to get there yet. Mm-hmm. Are you? I know you're just asking questions, but do you think that's something?
I'm just wondering because everyone paid it as a financial decision. Now he could sign a 4-year extension, which I think is projected to be valued at $273 million, or maybe it's 275, whatever. I know the cap was just adjusted, so I think it's $273 million around there. I think he'll sign it, but it also just the case for the total, because if you're going to land in the total obliteration tier, I think we need to sit here and conceivably say 2 or more key players or figures, if it's the coach or the front office, which in this case, I don't think David Adelman or the front office, like those aren't going to be like pain points for them, or at least changes they look at. So we need to sit here and say there's a chance 2 or more key players get moved. And so the Jokic extension of it all, if he doesn't sign it, I'm not saying that means the Nuggets should trade him, but does that increase the urgency with which it's, all right, you're probably not moving Murray because he's about to make an all-NBA team. But do you look at, like, are we trying to move Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson and swaps and seeing, like, can we increase the depth of the rotation or make ourselves cheaper? I think there's I'm leaning more towards somebody's getting fired or traded. But I think there's a total obliteration case here because, like you said, forget about the defensive stuff. I honestly think Jokic's MVP case is being underrated.
Sure.
But
he had an MVP season, just 2 other guys also did, I think is the issue.
Him missing time thing was sort of, even as well as the Nuggets played without him, that was how it's not, maybe he'll operate near the peak of his powers for the next 3 to 5 years. But are we past the point, or are we nearing getting past the point of, he's playing in 75 games minimum every single season? And that's the one that would, like, that's the question that I would harp on, and it would scare me. But the other part of this is too, does Denver's front office look at it differently to where it's, well, we're not trying to maximize the Jokic window. And honestly, if they were, there's a chance they would have made some other moves. It's we're $2.5 million away from the second apron, and that's no new contracts for Peyton Watson, no new contract for Spencer Jones. That would matter. That's not, you didn't bring back Tim Hardaway Jr., just as someone or Bruce Brown. So I think that's committed to 10 players. So when you fill out the roster, this is a second apron team. Are they willing to be a second apron team? I'm skeptical. Even if they win the title, I would expect them to probably trade. I would probably still put them in, like, I would still, well, if they win the title, they're technically exempt from this exercise, but I would still expect them to trade someone who matters or get rid of someone who matters because they won't pay in the second apron would be my guess.
I mean, then that cuts against there being pressure, because if they were going to do that regardless of what happens, then
there's pressure in the sense of this is your last shot with this group of the starting lineup plus this version of Peyton Watson. This is the one of the deepest teams at minimum they've ever assembled around Nikola Jokic. So you could look at it that way.
The last thing I'd say, I can't get to total obliteration. I think we're going to land on somebody's getting fired or traded just because that feels right. I don't think time to have the talk captures the pressure. I kind of feel like the way that ownership and by extension management has operated suggests that they're okay with where Denver is right now competitively. And because like you said, if you were title or bust, you're not trading MPJ in an unprotected first. You're keeping him and you're looking for other upgrades to get better. I like, you're not making any moves that at least at the time are debatable improvements. Right. And it's a tough argument. So I think their behavior to this point says to me that, yeah, if we have a competitive first round series and lose, we feel pretty good about the team we're bringing back next year. Don't think it's a title favorite, but that's not what we're after. So I think that takes some of the pressure off, because this isn't a team or an organization that has so far acted like we have to do every single thing possible to make this year as good as it can be. Like, you know what I mean? Does that feel fair? Yeah. Like, I think like it's not that kind of organization. I think they like to pay their guys. They like to be very relevant. They like to contend. I don't think they have that like very final like level of like maniacal, we got to max it out and go for it. So that takes some pressure off to me.
So do you still think that they belong that somebody's getting traded or fired?
Yeah, I think that feels appropriate still.
Fair. Who's the player that you think they'd be most like? Because Peyton Watson's the restricted free agent. Christian Brown's the contract that people are wondering about. It's with Cam Johnson.
I think Cam is maybe the one that they would move.
We definitely need to decrease the shooting that's on this team. I agree with you. So I'm going to nominate a team that I'm just curious. I want to know off the bat, where would you put the Blazers? Because I think that we're going to have we're either going to be right on point here, or there's going to be a big discrepancy in where we'd put them.
Oh man.
They're a total obliteration candidate. I'm just kidding.
It's one of the bottom two. I don't think they're totally found money. I think it's getting hot in here. I think it can't be found money because they have like a couple of expensive veteran contracts on the books in Holiday and Grant, and like you paid Kamara. I love that deal, but still, you're not like, and Avdia is young, but he's not 22. So I think, and the fact that you have Avdia on this deal means that like you have a massive advantage that you need to capitalize on by spending elsewhere to get good now. So I'm comfortable with Portland in the it's getting hot in here tier, because they weren't expected to be much more than they are. But the structure of their books is such that like, and the fact that like some of their young guys like Scoot and Sharp, like Klingon's been the most intriguing of that group, but those guys don't look like, oh, these are cornerstone types for sure. So they're not a found money team to me. I would put them in that's getting hot in here at a minimum. You could talk me higher if you want.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's time to have the talk, but I don't know, because they're in the play-in, does this talk happen regardless when you look at the complexion of their roster? But if they don't make it out of the play-in, you've extended Shaedon Sharpe and Tamani Kamara, as you mentioned. Those deals are fine. Scoot Henderson's extension eligible. Damian Lillard's coming back into the fold next year. You have Drew Holiday. You have Denny Avdia. What are we sort of doing with the offensive hierarchy here? And so you do need to make I would say at least one wholesale decision. And then there's also, well, how do we upgrade this team? How aggressive do we look to upgrade this team? We know that like defensively, they've had higher highs than offensively this year, without question. Donovan Clingan looks like a monster. Where, if you're looking to upgrade, so the 5 is, I would say, off limits. Is there any other spot on the raw, maybe Denny Avdia, that you say like, yeah, we're not going to consider upgrading from there, but I can't sit here in good faith and say like, we're not looking to upgrade from Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot or Drew Holiday or Jeremy Grant or even Tamani Kamara, just for someone who's going to give you more of an offensive punch. That's a weird spot to be in when you've already started paying your own guys while having some of these veteran contract on the books.
I think you did it. I think you got me up to time to have the talk, because there are real decisions they need to make, and it is a young team, but it isn't. So I think
the talk is sort of just like, do we consolidate? Are we moving on from certain guys?
Yeah. We're not definitely trading. Like you've got to have a talk just about like, is Dame our starter? And like, because if you get 80% of what Dame used to be, like, yeah, that guy is a starter. Like, but then your offense is real different. Denny Abdia is not playing this role if Damian Lillard is playing like Damian Lillard typically does. So yeah, I think there's a talk to be had for sure.
Oh, well, that was disappointing. I thought you were going to say found money or something, but
nah, you want to get there.
Nominate another team, sir.
Let's get scared and do the Magic. I'm gonna pose the same thing to you. So I'll preface it, and you have to tell me just which tier your gut says. Haven't fired the coach yet, but
that's happening.
Have some expensive players. I know there's like really there's no. Is it total obliteration, or is it somebody's getting fired / traded? What's your gut say?
I think it's somebody's getting fired or traded, because this is when you talk about Denver and maybe not acting as impulsively, the Magic are a hallmark of that behavior. How long did it take for them people were clamoring for them to make a Desmond Bane type trade it felt like multiples. It was before you extend Franz Wagner or Paolo Banchero, not after you extend both of them.
Because you want to do it while they're cheap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think that they're going to look at this season and say, you could look at the time that Franz Wagner missed, that Paolo Banchero missed, that Jalen Suggs missed, that Anthony Black missed. I will say, if it was a different front office in place, I could make a case for total obliteration, because are you sitting here feeling better or worse about the Paolo and Franz Wagner extensions each? Do you feel better or even the same about either of them?
I think you have to feel worse.
Right. Just the availability. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And you probably feel better about Franz Wagner's, and I don't know if that's solely because 1 year is already ticked off of it, or if it's more
not a good sign. Not a good sign if you feel better because there's less of it left.
And look, we know their ceilings, and I'm a huge Paolo Banchero advocate. But if it was a different front office in place, and that's where I'm wondering, at what point do they start to look at the front office if this season goes? Like, because if you're going to make a coaching change, wouldn't it be natural to think, well, is it like, should we move on and go with a different type of front office structure here?
Well, the thing is, the front office is what's going to make, unless ownership is just like done, which I don't see happening, Mosley's going to get fired. I don't know. Like, so where do the Magic have to get to save Mosley's job? They must win a first round series, correct? Like they would just have to, at a minimum. I don't think that's going to happen. So and Mosley is, I think, it's clearly the coach that everybody is looking at that has not been fired yet, that is most likely to be fired, because you brought in Desmond Bane, you've taken some steps to try to address the offense. It just hasn't happened. The cliche of you can't fire all the players, that'll be the next thing. But the first thing you do is you fire the coach. And so they're the quintessential somebody's getting fired / traded team. The only thing that might knock their pressure down is that they've been mostly disappointing, but you look up and what are they? They're going to finish with 45, 46 wins, maybe.
And the core lineups that just haven't had a ton of time together have been pretty good.
And that's not that far. Like, some people saw them winning 50, I think, but so they're not that far off. It's felt much farther from expectations than it actually is going to be in terms of final results. That's the only thing that gets you down to have the talk stage of pressure. But like, I think they've already had the talk like twice, right? I mean, they know what they've needed. So they're clearly somebody's getting fired / traded.
If they don't make it out of the play-in, would you be like, what? We expect them to make the playoffs, but if they don't make it out of the play-in, could Jeff Weltman be gone, or do they actively look at moving Paolo? I think would be the name most people. No, I don't disagree.
I don't think so. I think it's so clear and obvious that, like, well, we tried some stuff. Let's change the coach. And then, because we're so invested in these core players, we have to try the coach thing first.
Do you think, because the coach thing we're over, so that's baked in. So it'd be what would cause the next step, or what does that look like? Or do you even think we're a year away of we're not going to trade Jalen Suggs or Anthony Black because both of them aren't expensive yet. Anthony Black is extension eligible. He's not actually getting his new salary next year.
So I think they're still a year away from that. And I don't disagree. What I would say is you could make the case that like they're also a year behind because maybe the Mosley firing should have happened before this year so that you don't sort of waste this year having a lot of the same problems that you did in the past. So to me, to get them up to total obliteration, you have to, I guess Suggs would rise to that level if it's Suggs and Mosley that go. But really, to be true obliteration, like you're changing the core of this team. It's like it's got to be the coach and Paolo or Franz. And I think Mosley's going. I don't think either of those guys are going anywhere yet.
Who says no? Michael Porter Jr. for Paolo Banchero. Which team is saying no?
I hope Orlando says no.
Me too. but I'm curious to see how negative the view of Paolo's contract is at the end of this season. I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a positive value deal, but I'm kind of neutral on it still.
Yep.
You picked the Magic, which means I'm going to nominate this is surprisingly tough. Let's do the Oklahoma City Thunder, the reigning champs. Let's talk about them. They're inherently under pressure because you're the reigning champs. You're firmly in your title window right now. It seems like the Spurs are coming, and then if things break right, one or two more teams out east could be coming. What do the Pacers even look like next season at full strength? And they're adding Zubats and potentially a high draft pick. And then also their own financial concerns to where they're going to be, if they want to run it back, they're going to be in the second apron. Mm-hmm. And you could say, that's fine, they're good enough to do that, but are they going to try and avoid the second apron? They avoided the tax this year, right? Or did they finish inside it? I think they got out they got McCain. So I think I expected them to get out of the tax. I don't remember where they ended up. Let's check that. But regardless, are they also does it lower it at all to say, well, they're probably going to make changes even if they win the title. So yeah, they're $1 million under the tax. So go ahead.
That's the question. We kind of run into this with a few teams. Like it would be a huge disappointment if they did not make the finals, I think. Who knows, depending on how dominant the Spurs potentially look. But if that's what happens, does that change? If they win the title, I guess you might say it's a lot less likely that they just punt on like Hartenstein and Dort, right? The guys that they have team options on, if they're going to try to get cheaper.
Or is it
that's the thing. It's rhetorical. It's sort of rhetorical. I think at least just to make the argument, if you win the title, you can make the like all bets are off. We'll pay whatever it costs. Like, who cares? We're this good. You're insane if you change a team that's just won back-to-back titles, right? At the same time, like they might just renegotiate. They might bring those guys back on cheaper multi-year deals, whatever. I don't know that that's the case. I think maybe they're going to treat Hartenstein and Dort the same regardless of what happens in the playoffs, whether they win it, whether they go out in the second round. So as I'm looking at it, I'm zeroing in on either time to have the talk or it's getting hot in here. But even they can't be found money. That's just, you can't do that with a defending champ. But you also cannot get up into the top two tiers of pressure. I don't think, just because if, at least insofar as like how likely big changes are to result from what happens.
I think I'm with you, but at the same time, if they lost they're not. I mean, if they lose in the first round, I want to know who abducted Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's going to be my first
something bad happened that probably they can't fix with you know what I mean, like an injury.
Correct.
Or something.
If you get bounced in the second round, though, couldn't you see like somebody's getting traded, or does that need to refer to one of the big three? Because I'm even in my head thinking, well, maybe it's time to move on from. We're not even just looking at Hartenstein or Lou Dort, which, by the way, that's the other push and pull of this entire thing. Are you just letting those guys go, or are you picking up their team options and trying to turn them in? Because those are good players. I would argue that even Lou Dort's still on a net positive contract at that salary. You can't just let that go for nothing. But would somebody getting traded, do you think it's a major shakeup enough to start having a conversation about Case and Wallace, who's extension eligible, which the Thunder, by the way, have typically extended you or traded you? That's how they've operated.
Right.
Or does that extend to Alex Caruso? Does it extend to, well, we're finally going to move Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins?
Yeah, okay. You've already got me up to time to have the talk. Just because I think you're right. Like, you could imagine a scenario where the Thunder lose because, again, they don't score enough. And it's like, well, can't we turn Caruso or Dort or Wallace into somebody that's going to change the makeup of our team? Like we've got the defense thing set. So maybe that still feels like I still have a hard, so that may be the case, right? I don't know if that's going to get me up to somebody's getting fired or traded, even though I'm talking about trading players, because it's not like you're saying, it's not one of the big three. You're not like, so
it realistically kind of doesn't it seem like it's Case and Wallace or Lou Dort would be the biggest like piece to get you could throw Hartenstein in there, and that's unless you're moving multiple of those guys. Like if you told me all three of them are getting traded, that would warrant the.
At least with respect to Dort and Hartenstein, playoff performance might not have much to do with what happens with those guys, but Wallace, Caruso, some of those other players, that might, I could imagine that. So I'm ready to go to time to have the talk. Unless you want to advocate for moving them higher, but I can't get there.
No, and you know what the problem is that we're looking at this through the lens of they think they need to solve something. Mm-hmm. They're never going to look at this roster with their assets, how they could replenish the pipeline. They're never going to look at it through that lens. It's not there. Like you could see San Antonio or Houston or Detroit, one of those teams, they lose and we need to hit the honest button. OKC's they get bounced in the first round. They're not going to do that. Really, it's the talk. And the talk is, do we want to be mega expensive next season? Because how many years are they willing to spend in the second apron? Yeah. It's going to be a finite amount of time just based off the roster building restrictions applied to it. The talk is going to be, and it's probably whether they win the title or they lose in the second round, the conference finals, the finals, whatever. It's going to be, are we entering this? Are we going to get incredibly prohibitively expensive? Do we allow that to happen now? Or do we try and control it for another year? And that's the talk. And the likelihood that they decide we're just going to run everything back, that's certainly tied, I would assume, to some extent, the outcome of the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. That feels right. I'm going to nominate the Raptors. This is a weird team. Basically, all their guys are paid. Everybody seems happy with the coaching performance. They're kind of in the, would you call them like they're stuck in the middle, but it's like the upper middle class. So it's like they aren't equipped to do more than that, but the floor is also pretty high. I don't expect them to win a playoff series. I don't think most people expect them to win a playoff series so I'm just throwing out all the factors to think about. The other one is like, how do they get better meaningfully?
Trade. That's the only way that's going to is trade.
Right. So this is another one where it's like, if the expectation is that they lose in the first round, is that the reason that they're going to make a trade? Or is the entire season plus that they've had this core together the reason that you might make a trade? I don't know that the postseason result adds to that pressure. I feel like now if they won, it goes the other way. If they won in the first round, I think you might double down. You might stop talking about trades quite so much. I don't know if that'd be the right thing to do. Weirdly, I want to go low pressure again, but I keep doing that. Are you leaning higher?
Yeah, I think that they're in the somebody's getting fired or traded category.
Who do you think that is?
They're so expensive for a team that has at most one All-NBA player in Scotty Barnes, and at this rate, and this was year 5 for him, right? He's a fringe All-NBA player. Mm-hmm. He's a certified all-defense player, if you want to say, but he's a fringe All-NBA player. I think he's made great adjustments on offense. Can he ever be the top-level guy on offense? Probably not.
No.
And you don't have that player on the roster. You also do not have your center of the future. You don't have your center of the present on the roster. Like, I know Jakob Poeltl does certain...
Actually, based on his contract, Jakob Poeltl is the center of the future.
Right,
so
that's fair.
You're wrong there, sir.
That's why I don't think Bobby Webster, after getting the keys, is going to be dispatched, but you did give out that Jakob Poeltl extension. You did pay Brandon Ingram, and like the pressure's kind of on here. None of those contracts none of their biggest deals, with the exception of maybe Scotty Barnes, is going to be viewed as, I guess none of them are like, aside from Jakob Poeltl, which is one of the worst deals in the league, none of them are firmly in the red, but that's damning with faint praise. Hey, we have a bunch of these expensive players. None of them are terrible. You're not getting positive value for Emmanuel Quickly. At the same time, when they had to get out of the tax this year. They're inside $8 million of the tax as of right now next year before factoring in how they fill out their roster. We're looking at, I think, multiple players are getting in the top 7, 8 of their rotation. Like, if they don't win a playoff series, I think they need to win a play. And if they don't, I would guess that everyone except Scotty Barnes and Colin Murray Boyles will just be constantly involved in trade talks because that's how aggressive the Raptors need to play. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just kind of floating this. We'll finish 6th in the 5th, 6th in the East and keep losing in the first. Like, how does this team get better? What is the swing? You can't just say, well, what if Emmanuel quickly gets better as a lead guard? He stayed healthier this year. What if Brandon Ingram gets better? No. Scotty Barnes could still get better. Colin Murray Boyles will get better, but what is he's not swinging your offense.
Yep, you're right. I was looking too much at, well, what happens if they lose? The pressure is like they got to win a series to justify this. So I think you're right to put them in the somebody's getting fired or traded tier. Total obliteration just seems too high for a team that's going to be.
Honestly, I'll make that case. Trade everybody except Scotty Barnes and Colin Murray Boyles. Let's start over.
No, I thank you for reframing this for me because I got to think more about like, oh my God, they have to succeed or something bad happens, as opposed to when they fail, here's the bad stuff that's going to happen. Like it's I'm not looking at both sides of the pressure argument. Good one. That's where they belong.
Okay, I'm going to make a total obliteration case right now.
We need one.
It's for the Miami Heat.
Oh,
what are we doing here, folks? What's the plan? I think what's
cap
so
space 2027. Look out.
Right, at a time when free agency is DOA.
Dead. Yep.
My whole thing here is they're not going to, maybe they come out of the play-in. That's not outside the realm of possible. They're not winning a playoff. And they would need to win a playoff series because it means they beat the Celtics or the Pistons or the Knicks or somebody for me to sit here and say, you know what? Mm-hmm. No, this team is a total obliteration. I don't even think you could look at this offseason and say, you can't trade Bam. It's like, you got to get Giannis to pair with Bam. You got to get a start. No. You trade Bam and rebuild like this. They've done this bottom of the middle build thing for long enough. I don't think there's they could win a playoff series and maybe that emboldens them to say, what? Yeah. You still have to go out and trade a bunch of stuff for Giannis? Okay, then they're still in the total obliteration tier. There's nothing they could do to make me think that they are less than a top 15 player away from even sniffing title contention.
Yeah, and it feels like that's been the case for a long, long time, but we're not really that far removed from the, oh my God, Jimmy Butler just hauled this team to game whatever of the finals. But with him not being there, I think it just illustrates that, like, we love Bam. I don't know how many different ways we have to praise him, but like,
honestly,
he can't be your best guy. He can't.
Right, but he also lost me when he didn't stop at scoring 81 points.
Right. He was done for you at that point. Yeah. Or 80. He needed to stop at 80. You don't get the pat. No, I think that is an inspired total obliteration choice because they're not coming from a normal, like to compare them to Cleveland, who they share that tier with. They're really different situations, but I think you're right because if you do this for another year, you're not that different than the Bulls that we made fun of for 6 straight, 10 years in a row, right? You can't just be content to hang around here. And Bam is better than anybody the Bulls had during that stretch, but still, if we got to be consistent and say, like, if you're stuck in this spot or this range, you got to get out of it. And the only way, the only way up is down, at least and that's a blow up. I like it.
I thought you were about to pull the Under Armour Rock slogan. The only way out is through.
Nope. You got to go. This is the other direction. You got to go down to get up. Okay. Glad the Cavs were lonely up there. Let's do the Spurs. I feel like this should be relatively easy. So it can't be found money, even though.
Okay, good. I thought you were going there.
No, it can't be that because it's different than the Hornets, where the Spurs have established themselves as a team that not even remotely a shock if they won the title, right? Like, I don't know if you'd even say surprise. You'd say potentially, like, seemingly unlikely. But if you have one of the 3 best players in the league and you've got, like it can't be found money. They have a lot of found money elements. Guys on rookie scale deals, kicking ass, like just a seemingly endless runway, which we know is not true. No team has that. But I almost even think that it's getting hot in here is not enough pressure because of how good they are right now.
Yes.
I'm not willing to go below. So let's say it's time to have the talk. What is the topic of that discussion?
Wemby's about to get his Supermax extension, and we'll see if he qualifies for it with the way that if that 65 game rule is still in place next year, who knows? You're going to get more expensive after next year. With Fox on the books, you got to start thinking about Castle's next deal at that point. Dylan Harper will be a year out from his extension. Devin Vassell's next contract will be coming up. The talk is, depending on where they exit in the playoffs, can we get better? Where do we get better? How aggressive are we about getting better? Which is why there could be a case for somebody's getting traded. If this is a team that gets bounced in the first, or based off their profile, if everyone's healthy, and you could say they're in an interesting spot, which is why I won't put them up to the somebody's getting traded tier, where you could argue that they still need to get their playoff scars. Like we saw, the Thunder needed to get their, they didn't need to make major changes. They needed to get their playoff scars, but they also needed to get an Isaiah Hartenstein level player. That feels like where the Spurs are in. It's if they lose in the playoffs, but I'll say before the conference final specifically, you got to sit down and have a conversation. We know the spot that in theory needs to be upgraded would be the front court slot next to Wemby. Because you have the Vassell, the Harper, Castle, Fox, like just kind of that perimeter carousel is in place. That primary frontline spot next to Wemby, who do we need? How do we go about getting them? Is that, and like, how good do they need to be? It's just like, what's the floor to ceiling or range of outcome of, is it I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, we need a Trey Murphy, or do we need to investigate Giannis? Could it be worse than Trey Murphy and we're still sitting pretty?
Yeah, no, I think we've landed on the right spot because, and now some people might say like we're being inconsistent because Boston is in the found money tier, and they, at least with respect to their conferences, they're kind of similarly situated where it's like, yeah, could win a title. Not a disaster if they don't, but like Boston,
they're not expected to win. Like the Spurs have been billed as the biggest threat to the Thunder. They're under more pressure than the Celtics,
and they built themselves into this, right? Like they're sorry guys, you did this to yourselves. You applied this pressure. And if they'd won 42 games, everybody might be totally happy with that. But
so I'm going to vacuum this. Which team is under more pressure? The one that has Jason Tatum coming back from an Achilles injury, or the team that has a player who's going to finish in the top 3 of MVP voting and maybe be unanimous defensive player of the year?
Right.
Which team's under more pressure?
Well, just going on the theory of like, we talk about it in a lot of different contexts. Like if you have a guy that's this good, the time is now. Like it's real hard to find a player better than Victor Wembanyama is right now today. So however much better you think he's going to get, you don't get to sort of use that as a reason to slow roll this. And to their credit, like they paid Fox. I think that was a stupid deal. I think when it's time to trade somebody, that's probably your guy. But like his contract, good trade, dumb extension for Fox.
You feel worse about it with the way he's played this season? I feel fine.
I think Castle and Harper are going to be better than him in short order.
But that doesn't mean that he's a terrible contract. I mean, don't you think that he's played well?
That's too much for your 4th best player on the best version of this team. Now, if they win a title and he's the 2nd best player this year, I'll totally retract all of this.
Well, I think you also need to, he could be their 4th best player for another 2 years before Castle or Harper is paid.
But the opportunity cost, what could you do with that money for someone that's not your 3rd best guard? You know, I'm overstating it. I don't love it. I think if the Spurs had it to do again, maybe they still do it. But if they knew that Harper and Castle were going to look this good this soon, I think you would hesitate on just auto max.
Probably hesitate, but I also, maybe he's played, like we've seen him kind of annihilate defenses when he's needed to. And then he's been able to play off Steph Castle and he's been able to play off.
He's a really good player. He's a really good player. He's not a max player to me. And I think that matters for a team like the Spurs, where every dollar is going to start to count because you're competing at the highest level. You know what I mean?
I'm just shocked that your ire for the Kings extends to when players leave the team.
I really like Fox. I really like Fox. I just think on this team with these young guys, it's like, oh God, what if that could have gone to just a killer 3 or 4? Like what if, you know? It's fine. It's not the worst thing in the world to have a very good player on a big contract. It's just it's not optimal in this case. So time to have the talk feels right. If they have a terrible postseason result, within reason, I think we'll still look at each other and say like, well, all right, this is what you had to go through. That's okay. People will pick them to win 60 games next year if they lose in the first round. Like, right. So they'll be right back where they are.
Looking at how they got where they are and where they are in their competitive life cycle, I think the Detroit Pistons are a good team to nominate next as just an analog for the Spurs of the East. I think they're under more pressure than San Antonio. They're not total obliteration because it's just you can't. But I made the case. Pistons fans disagreed, but I think this is there now. The Cade collapsed lung of it all. He's already back, but we'll see how this impacts him. That could change the calculus. I still believe this is Detroit's best chance at winning an NBA championship because it's going to be their best chance at coming out of the East. I think Boston only gets scared. They're great now. People think they're going to come out of the East. They're not going to be worse next year. Yeah. The Pacers should be better and healthier. Yeah, and then you're looking at, okay, unless you think
Atlanta,
Cleveland,
Charlotte.
Right, they're getting better, and then Cleveland and New York, they'll at least tread water probably into next year, right? So you've avoided making any huge moves to this point. This is the summer where if you don't make the conference finals, and maybe even if you do, you're looking at we're making a consolidation trade regardless, especially because you've paid Cade. You have Jalen Duren is going to be is entering restricted free agency, and Asar Thompson is extension. We didn't even mention that with the Rockets, or maybe we did. Amen Thompson being extension eligible too. I think we're looking at probably. I think somebody's getting fired or traded, and I think the trade would be the element that I focus on, depending on where their postseason ends or how it ends.
I agree with that. The Pistons are in exactly the spot where they're led by veterans. They're young veterans. Cade counts as a veteran now. He's on his second deal. Duren's about to get his second deal. Thompson, as you mentioned. And then you pepper in the Duncan Robinsons and Karis LeVerts and Isaiah Stewarts and all these guys that they're not, this isn't an old team. It's not as young as you think it is either, unless you really think like Ron Holland is going to be, I don't know. The point I'm trying to make unsuccessfully is this is the danger spot where you can, as an ownership group or as a front office, get convinced this is going to last forever. We've got 5 years, we don't need to trade for Michael Porter Jr. or whatever else, right? And then you go into the postseason as a number 1 seed, you have a disappointing result like that. This is the spot where, because Cade is as good as he is, it's not that different from the Spurs, where it's like if you have a player as good as Cade is right now, it's time to go, because good luck finding someone that's going to have a better season than the one Cade just had, right? Like it's. Right. I think if we didn't have the 65 game rule, he's probably on All NBA first team. I think, or at least we're having.
I think I would have had him. I ended up with Kawhi. I think I probably would have had Cade there. Yeah.
Right. So that's all to say there should be a lot of pressure here, and you do need to make like a pretty meaningful change or two if you don't have a great postseason result, because like you just don't get to assume that you have the window's open forever. It never is. That's not how this works anymore.
This is a tier where I wonder if it would be worth like looking at the order. So in the somebody's getting traded / fired, we have the Rockets, the Nuggets, the Magic, the Raptors, and the Pistons. Which of these teams I think is under the most pressure of that? And could you make an obliterated case for the Pistons? What if they get bounced in the first round or even the second round, and you have Jalen Duren? He's going into free agency.
Yeah, well, I think you have a harder time beating whatever some of those outside offers might be for him in restricted free agency if he just flops. Like if he can't anchor your defense suddenly, or he's not a good enough second leading scorer. I think you could have that could change your thoughts. Obliteration though is like Bickerstaff's gone. I don't see it. Duren or someone who else? If not Duren, like, because if you move on from Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert and Tobias Harris,
you're looking at. I think you're more so looking at moving on from, because would you consider like trading a buttload of first round picks would file under somebody's getting traded though, right? Where it's not.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't really talked about that, but yeah.
But also I think you're looking at players. It's we know K's not going away, so it's Duren, Holland, and Asar. And even maybe I'm underselling Duren. I kind of look at it as just Asar Thompson or Duren as if you were trading both of those guys to do something.
Yeah, they're in the right spot. I to answer your question, I don't know who's in that tier. I'm not sure who's under the most pressure. They're all so different.
I think.
I mean, the Magic are going to fire their coach,
but yeah, but they're also that inoculates them to an extent. I honestly think they might be under the least pressure because they just they haven't pulled the coach button.
Yeah, which they will, and nothing that happens is going to change that.
Probably. I think Denver, just by virtue of how long they've been together, might be under the most pressure.
Okay,
and then I think, is Detroit second, or is it Houston?
Well, if you really are convinced, and I'm not saying I'm not, but if you really do subscribe to the idea that like this is as soft of an Eastern Conference at the top as they're likely to find in the next, for as long as this core is the core of the team, I think that's a pretty credible argument. So the best chance idea is pretty persuasive here. Although like nobody is picking them to beat whoever comes out of the West regardless. So it's like, you just got to make the finals. I think they don't need to win the title.
Would you put them above the Nuggets?
No. Just because, I mean, the Nuggets are more expensive. They don't have the assets to move. So I guess maybe, I don't know if this is germane to the conversation, but like Detroit has outs. They have moves to make. Right. For Denver, it's like, I mean, I don't know. You've kind of made a lot of moves already. So I wouldn't put them above Denver. All right. Good choice there. We're not saving them for last. Let's go Knicks.
There's a clear answer here, and if you don't have it, I'll be incredibly disappointed with you.
How do you obliterate this team, though? You really want to put them total obliteration? Actually, answer first. Do you want? Does your heart want to?
Yes, I have not. We have to see how the playoffs unfold, but this is just. Of all the contenders, I've watched a lot of. I pretended to watch a lot of contending team basketball, and I don't think I would say the Rockets have been the most frustrating to watch, but I kind of like nudged them out of my contending tier a while ago. Right. With the Knicks, it's just they're very Timberwolves-y, but without I can be convinced that the Timberwolves, maybe because we've seen them do it in back-to-back years, they're going to rise to the moment against these certain opponents where they kind of fit Chris Finch or some of the lineups they'll throw out. They will figure out, or I just view Anthony Edwards as a higher end playoff player than Jalen Brunson. I don't think that's unfair to say, but they're going to figure out things that plague them. With the Knicks, just to focus on one issue, the constant, what do we do when like there's a big on Josh Hart? And it's, we're coming off their win over the Celtics where they actually did a lot of different things and it ended up working. But I can't sit here and look at the Knicks and say, even more so at this point than I think Julius Randle in Minnesota, to use them as the Knicks' comparison, what's supposed to be your second most offensive player, not having an answer to who that's going to be on a game-to-game basis is incredibly problematic. Like, people are getting mad at Jalen Brunson for not making better decisions. If they see a wings on Karl Anthony Towns, can you direct the team to do some more off-ball switching and then bring Karl Anthony Towns into the action once the big man's back on him? Do you know how fucking insane that is? That if that's your second best player, that's what you need to do to go give him the ball and trust that he's going to be in the right circumstance? And by the way, he still doesn't have the ball at that point. You're not trying to create a mismatch for him. You're trying to get him open or a better matchup on the roll or as a pick and pop option. I am so, if the Knicks, and the Knicks have done this to themselves, by the way. I don't always look at windows as a championship or bust prism. You have your owner coming out and saying that you are at total obliteration territory, and total obliteration doesn't mean that they need to strip it down and rebuild. But if they're hitting the Giannis button, that one assumes that Giannis has done his best James Harden impression, which I was initially going to rule out, and I no longer will anymore based off how things are going in Milwaukee. But two, if you've reached that point, to make any sort of move, because you have very little draft equity here, you're going to need to give up multiple players, and your 20 to 33 first-round pick, gone. And then it's, who are you trading from Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges? And by the way, the real question is, are you better? Did you get maybe a better second option? But are you thinner? Are you more fragile? Are you more beholden to everyone needs to stay healthy again? this is just, I don't know what the Knicks would, as someone evaluating the league and as a fan, if they made it to the conference finals and it was convincing enough, depending on who they lose to, I would be open to the fact of, all right, can you break up one of these larger contracts into 2 or 3 smaller players and let's roll forward. But they don't seem like they're going to think like that. And that might be coloring my view of where they're at. When you look at their books, like there's a chance that they're stuck in the sense of, well, you can't really improve your championship odds much from this point by making moves. I don't think that's going to stop them from making nuclear moves if they fail to make the NBA finals.
I mean, the nuclear might be their only, it's not easy for the Knicks to make a small trade, right? Like, unless you're breaking up one of those contracts. So I think you're right. I do love I can just feel your heart just really driving this, but your head's not wrong either. Here, the way I look at it is, I mean, just going through the tiers that we've established, I don't know that Knicks fans have ever had a just happy to be here feeling, unless we go back to like a team Latrell Sprewell was on. Basically,
I think the early, the
mellow
early
3-point shooting teams.
No, I think it was like the Tibbs, like they were better than they were. Like Julius Randle's winning most improved player, and like
fine
that type of the first, like the beginning of even the Jalen Brunson era as well.
Okay,
it's really. So,
they've
the past 2 years,
but they fired the coach, so we've already clearly passed somebody's getting fired. So that by default, they've gone through it's getting hot in here because there's all the is Tibbs the right coach for this, and then the pressure that was applied after the Bridges trade and the Anunoby trade. Like, boy, you guys are really going for it. We're past time to have the talk, the cat of it all, right? So like, I think total obliteration is by default the only option here. If you just look at like what they've already progressed through in the last 1 to 5 years, basically.
Right. And to make the head argument, I'm going to ask you a question. The Knicks lose in the conference finals. I'm going to give you the over under of 1.5 members of the top 6 players being back, the starting lineup plus Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah. I mean,
or being moved. Over under of 1.5. Are you taking? I think under?
I think it's over, and so they kind of have to be obliteration. And plus, like again, zooming out, like you guys did the conference finals last year, and you fired the coach, so clearly that wasn't satisfactory, right? So it's unfair. It's totally unfair because like making the conference finals is incredible. Like that's a great achievement, but because you fired the coach after that happened, you're telegraphing. Again, we've had this debate a million times, not a debate, but we've pointed this out a million times. Like, I don't know if they're going to be better without Thibodeau, but they might be different. And that's all
if they lose before the conference finals now, could you already hear so they fired the coach just to win 2 more games and exit the playoffs earlier or something? Could you just,
that will be out there. The reality is it's just so hard to be better than the Knicks have been for the last I guess
3 straight 50-win seasons.
It takes like, as much as anything, it takes luck. Now, they have some iffy transactions, but like they are iffy. They're not objectively. Even the Cat one is like, well, I don't know.
It's the Mikal Bridges one, and I don't fault Mikal Bridges for that. I actually think his contract is fine. People think that contract is so bad. Yeah. I just think people they conflate it with what the Knicks gave up to get him, and in a way you do need to, because they treated him like he was going to be at worst, because the Cat trade happened, the 3rd best player on a contender.
Right. So there's just nowhere else to put them. They have to be at the top. I mean,
what is that tier before we get to our final team? The total obliteration tier. We have Cavs, Heat, and the Knicks so far. What does that order need to be? Does it feel like the Cavs are?
I still think the Cavs are number 1.
Yeah,
I think they are. I could put the Knicks. The Knicks have to be ahead of the Heat though, just because they're a higher level team right now.
Yeah, they're under more pressure. That's fair. Because I was going to say, like, who's more likely to trade their franchise cornerstone, depending on how the playoffs go? I think the Heat, but that's really
they are, because the Knicks are not going to trade Brunson. So so I think that feels right. So we got the Wolves last, but not least. Back-to-back conference finals. We have both toyed with this idea of like, why not them at various points this year. I'm still very happy to consider that as a possibility. Like they're another team that, this is obviously the most unsophisticated way to evaluate a team, but if they won the championship, I'm not wondering like what crazy thing happened. I really do think the best version of the Wolves, as up and down as they've been, and as much as they've shown they're not quite there over the last couple of years, I'm not. They're in a very small group of teams where I'm not shocked if they win the title. So that and the fact that they've been as good as they've been. I mean, we just talked about the Knicks made the conference finals. The Wolves have done it twice in a row. So I think.
So the Pacers, their streak is still technically alive, right?
Right. They can do it again. Don't I will rule them out just because of math. So I think there's a lot of pressure on the Wolves. Some of it is alleviated by the fact that I don't think Chris Finch is going anywhere. I don't think Ant's going anywhere. So they can't be obliteration, I don't think, unless you want to make that case. But they also can't be lower than somebody's getting traded or fired. I think at a minimum they're traded. They're the second highest pressure tier.
So
sorry, one more thing. Because the Spurs and Thunder exist. There's two teams that everyone on planet Earth agrees are better than them and that are in their own conference. And that's because one of them has a back-to-back soon-to-be MVP and the best defense we've ever seen. The other one has a generational super talent. And it's just like, well, again, just as with the Knicks, it's really hard to be better than Minnesota has been. It's just it's hard.
Correct. I think they're in the total obliteration tier. So I have them into somebody's getting traded fire here. I don't know how this meshes with that, but Tim Connolly having the ability to just leave again, that's like that has to count for if he decides up, nope, done here, moving on. But for what you just said about the Thunder and the Spurs, you also have to then make, well, is this team ever going to be able to rival windows that are increasingly only going to be open, or teams that, let's say it this way, there's a chance the Thunder get better, but let's say they just don't get worse. The Spurs are going to get better. There are other teams, but like even the Rockets have more outs than you, or ways to get better, let's say, than you do. You could make a case with the Lakers' cap space and their ability to trade 3 first-round picks this summer. They're in that territory too. What about some of the other teams that are in the play-in right now? I would say specifically the Blazers would be the one to signal out of. Well, they could get a lot better. The Jazz are going to be I would think like a real force next season. The Mavericks have Cooper Flagg, and if they hit on a couple moves, if I'm Minnesota, even if I make it back to the conference finals, we already know they're going to consider obliterating the roster because they tried to. They tried to trade for Kevin Durant. They tried to trade for Giannis. I don't know how close they were. They were viewed as the team that was like most serious for Giannis at one point, and I was like, is that an internal evaluation because they don't have a ton to give up? But looking at, they'll be able to trade their 2033 first-round pick this summer. They'll have swap. Like, this is, I think anyone but Anthony Edwards is going to be, and now that means different things. There'll be teams that want Jaden McDaniels, maybe Rudy Gobert, and Julius Randle, not so much, but Naz Reid. There'll be teams that want Dante DiVincenzo. This is, if they bow out before the NBA Finals, I think they're going to, and this isn't to say that the season should be viewed as a disappointment. Internally, and I'm going to assume Tim Connolly is still there, I think they're going to look at themselves and say, we need another caps lock star to get us in the realm of OKC and San Antonio. And then they're going to go and do it. And I honestly, this isn't even, I don't know what I'm selling you on. It's just they've already tried to, and they just haven't done it, is the only thing.
That's the best argument, right? Like, we know that if they could have, they wouldn't have obliterated. Well, I mean, they've tried. They've been more than willing to do it, and that's before knowing how these playoffs shake out. So I think you've talked me into it. They can move up to total obliteration. The only counter I'd make, and this isn't going to be enough to change, you've convinced me, is that, like, I don't know, it feels unambitious in a weird way, but part of me is kind of like, because I keep saying it's so hard to be as good as even Minnesota is, like, what if you just kind of hung around and hoped you got lucky? Like, you hope that the Thunder or Spurs, you know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to get back to this level. Same thing with the Knicks, that like, if you mess with it, you're almost definitely getting worse, unless you swing this blockbuster deal, which I don't know how likely that is.
I think the thing we might undersell, and because Minnesota's kind of just not old enough to play that card, but you look at Rudy Gobert and then the point guard situation and think, well, it's going to cost money to bring back Io. So are we going to do they want to be a second apron team next year to run it back? Would be another factor to put into the equation. But even with the Knicks, like what is happening behind, like there's something we knew at some point in the locker room, something was fairly rotten with the Knicks. Maybe they've worked through it, but there's just been weird murmurings ever since Karl-Anthony Towns has come, even with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and Tom Thibodeau. We haven't heard that same stuff in Minnesota, but Julius Randle's been there long enough for it to happen. And Anthony Edwards just might get itchy. Not that he's going to ask out for Minnesota, but he might look around and say, I wanted Kevin Durant. We know he wanted Kevin Durant. So I think total obliteration is right. I actually think you could probably make the case that they're under more pressure than the Knicks, or no? Just because, I mean,
I'm
even
not
next
sure.
year, couldn't you talk? What's easier to talk yourself into in any given season possibility next year with a Western Conference team or an Eastern Conference team?
I'm probably East.
So I think that the Wolves would probably be under more pressure.
Yeah, you're right. That's a tough one. Okay, yeah, no,
they're neck and neck. We'll leave it as
okay.
It is.
Anybody you want to move? Anybody that's bothering you that we've gotten the wrong tier? I think we've kind of made it enough of a discussion to.
Yeah, let's go through the tiers before, and we have stat padding, so don't tune out just yet for people that are thinking about it. Total obliteration, we have the Cavs, the Knicks, the Wolves, and the Heat. I feel good about those teams.
I think so too.
In somebody's getting fired / traded, we have Denver, Detroit, Houston, Toronto, and the Magic. I feel good about these teams. I'd be willing to like move up Detroit, but you would need to really. I was the one I think that made the argument to move them up, but I wasn't.
Yeah, I can't quite get there. Can't quite get there with them.
Time to have the talk. Lakers, Warriors, Blazers, Thunder, Spurs. That's a nifty amalgam of teams right there.
We have a third of the Western Conference in there.
Who's under the most pressure of this tier?
It's either San Antonio or Oklahoma City. I think it's probably the Thunder, right? Because they're supposed to win the title.
And they're getting expensive. The Spurs aren't. We need to move around money there.
The Spurs get another year grace period, even though we've belabored the point that like it's go time when you're this good. Okay, go ahead.
It's getting hot in here, which when you look at the teams is really it's getting confusing in here tier. The Clippers and the Sixers, which feels right. Those are the teams where you look at
right.
Like, what are we doing here?
They are really like conference cousins in there. Like, oh, gee, what do you do with this team? Yeah, I love. Perfect.
Could, I guess, because we view Kawhi Leonard as more of a mercenary and not ingrained into the Clippers fabric. Right. But the Warriors could belong here as well because they're sort of a what are we actually doing here team?
Yeah, they could. I think of all the teams in that tier that we need to have the talk feels most applicable to them because there's a lot to talk about. if but again, independent of the playoffs, they got a lot to figure out. Bottom tier, what a fascinating found money tier.
Found money, just happy to be here. Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta Hawks, Phoenix Suns, Boston Celtics. I don't think we'll get a lot of pushback on. I think the Celtics might be the team in the tier. Be like, no, they can't be in here because I'm ready for the argument to be if they don't win the East, what was this season for? We could have had a high draft pick.
Well, it's and the counter to that would be this season wasn't supposed to be for anything. Like they were never going to truly tank. We realized like fairly quickly, right? Like they weren't going to try to lose on purpose. Like Joe Mazzulla and Jaylen Brown were not going to allow that to happen. So I get it. Like if they'd finished with 41 wins, I think that's obviously worse for several reasons than what they ended up doing. It's a gap year, and they're gonna maybe make the finals. Like they're not gonna be
but
worse
by definition,
next year.
Though, that's not a gap year then,
right? Well, it's supposed to. I don't know. I think they're definitely the like which one of these doesn't belong outlier here. But
anyone who thinks the Hornets need to be nudged up, I respect you and
right.
I will acquiesce.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think I'm okay with them in the bottom tier. If I'm a Celtics fan, found money is right. It's just like, hey, it's the Paul. Look at us. It's the Paul Rudd thing.
What did you think about this exercise? I had a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it. I had a great time.
I don't know if we do this every year, but I liked it.
I think we did it. Yeah, it's hard to say. Guess what? Staple. Good conversation. We're going to do it again next year.
We should save it in our files.
Let's do it for the NBA Cup. Who's under the most pressure, Dan, to come? We just use it for everything.
Should we do it? Well, is it at some point the NBA is going to reach that we need to have a tournament solution portion of their discussion about tanking. And so we'll be under
more
the
tournaments,
most
more
pressure.
pressure. Great. Let's do it.
Grant, you know what's also a staple around these parts?
Let's hear it.
We got stat padding. We only have one stat padding segment. I have it for Grant. I'm like fairly excited about this one. It's a guess the NBA team type of situation, but you know what I'm going to ask you to do?
I don't.
Wow. All right. Well, let's move on then. You were supposed to know. Guess the NBA team based off where their players were drafted.
Like where they
I'm
were,
gonna give you
like where they were sitting in the green
overall,
room.
Second, where they were sitting in the guess the NBA team based on the player's draft day suit. Just gonna crop out the head, and it's only.
Guess what? You just found our next stat padding.
All right, Greg. Guess the NBA team based off where their players were drafted. So you'll get to guess. You'll get one guess after each draft position comes up. First up, number 11.
The Golden State Warriors.
That is incorrect, but I respect it. Number 5.
Wow, an 11th pick and a 5th pick. This is, you know what? So we talked off air and you said, I don't know if you're going to be really good at this or hate it. Right now I'm leaning hate because this is really hard so far. I got to think about who's in a 5th pick. So, all right, I'm going to give me another one.
You don't even want to guess a team. You have a 1.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm blanking now. The Jazz.
That is incorrect.
Okay.
The 4th overall pick.
What a team. This team better be good. 11, 5, and 4. I mean, the Hornets?
Sounds like we're playing Big-O. That is incorrect. Next up is the 2nd overall pick.
What?
Nuts, right?
Are you trying to Marvin Bagley me right now? No, that can't be right. Although Coward was 11, who's 5? I don't think the Grizzlies have it. Man,
can I point out one thing?
Please.
Marvin Bagley's on the Mavericks.
Is he really? I thought he was on the Grizzlies. Yes, was he on the Grizzlies at some point? No, you're right. He's on the Mavericks. So now I know it's not the Mavericks. Let's see. Do the people are just listening to this don't know what I'm seeing here? Do the colors of the numbers or the circles they're in mean anything?
I was just trying to make it aesthetic for anyone who wanted to watch along with stats.
It's very colorful, and I like.
Might have also made it easier for our awesome video editor too, but who knows?
2, 4, 5, and 11. Man, so this is that's the thing. It's not necessarily a team that.
No, it's a team
that it is. Thanks. That is that drafted all these guys at this number. You can trade. Is this the Wizards?
That's incorrect. Final one. The number 1 overall pick. So to recap, we have 1, 2, 4, 5, and 11.
1, 2, 4. So 1 should just keep me fairly limited. This is, you know what? This is really hard because now I got to think about, okay, who are the last few number 1 picks? But then all the draft years are so different. I mean, if your goal is to stump me, success, because I don't even know where to guess now. So other than to say, I got to pick a team that has a number 1 overall pick on it. Man, we've established.
You could also look at, teams that have a number 1 overall pick, but then where they also have high other draft picks playing beside them.
Right, but so I could just go through eliminate. I don't think the Pistons they've got 1. I don't think they have 2, unless I'm forgetting somebody. The Thunder do not have a 1. Chet was 2. Man, I could just go through and list teams. The Magic. Do the Magic have a 2? I don't think so. The Heat. No, the Heat don't have it. They have sneaky Andrew Wiggins there. Man, this is impossible. It's not the Lakers. It's not the Clippers. I already guessed the Warriors. I don't know. I just got to throw a guess out there. I'll say It's not the Wolves. They're number 2. It's not Houston because Durant was. This is really hard. It's a terrible podcast. I'm just sitting here eliminating teams while I talk to myself. I'll just guess. I'll end the pain. I know this isn't right, but the Pelicans have a number 1 pick. So I will. Oh, wait. Nope. I'll just take the Pelicans and know that I'm wrong.
That'd be incorrect. And I'm shocked you didn't even mention the actual team, but it's the Spurs.
They didn't enter my brain at all. But yeah, okay. Well, Wemby, Harper,
Dylan Harper
Castle.
at 2, Fox at 5, Vassell was 11, Wemby was 1, and Steph Castle at 4.
Man, okay. You know what? That's on me. I don't know. The other than Vassell, I don't think I remembered Vassell was 11, but the 1 and 2 should have been easy. All right. Do you have another one of these? I'd like redemption, or at least I'd like to try.
Oh, I have 4 other ones.
Oh, good.
Of them, if you're ready.
I'm gonna get one of these at least.
So next up, we begin with the second. Oh no, sorry, that's wrong. We begin with the 10th overall pick.
That's giving me nothing. I'm gonna guess. I don't think that. I'll just guess the Celtics to move on.
That would be incorrect, but worthwhile guess. Who was drafted number 10 on the Celtics?
I have no idea. It was just a guess.
The 6th overall pick.
The Wizards.
That is also incorrect. Next up is the 8th overall pick.
I can't even think of somebody that was taken 8th right now. 10, 8, and 6. So we're in the I was going to say in the future, I think it would be easier, which I know is not your goal to make these easier, but if the player had to have been drafted by that team, but then that only limits you to homegrown guys. That makes it kind of tricky.
It also could end up making it harder because then you're going to be dealing with obscure player rather than
like who was 31 and yeah. Okay. Who have I not said? 10, 8, and 6 is like who knows, man. I'll guess this won't be right either. I'll just say Orlando to move on.
That is also incorrect. Good guess though. I like
this. Isn't going to work well as a cut up stat padding. I don't think. 17.
Number 17 overall.
Who knows who was drafted 17th? The goal should. You know what? If you just asked me to remember someone drafted 17th, I think I would struggle.
Do you want me to put all 5 up on screen and then you can
I don't know if it's going to match. Yeah, just give me the last number because I'm going to have to take another shot in the dark here.
Okay, number 20 overall. So to recap, we have a 20th overall pick, 17th overall pick, 8th overall pick, 10th overall pick, and 6th overall pick.
And are these selected at
They're
random?
all core I didn't put any just randos.
So like if there was a 2, you would have put it. These are probably their higher picked guys. I
would say it's higher picked, but also we're talking about players who actually play the most or would be the most important.
Okay. So for example, I'm just trying to probe here. So like if you had, I mean, obviously if you had Cat, you would put him here, but if you had Brunson and he's way later, or if you had Jokic, would you put there? Would they be a number that you would put? Okay. Yeah. So these are significant players. I'm
not your enemy, Grant.
I mean, the thing, you know what I need to do? I need to look at a list of teams. So what we know for sure about this team is that they don't have anybody that's a top 5 pick on the roster. So that's helpful a little bit.
That's actually not true.
What? This team does?
Correct.
Wow,
I'll give you context. So yes, this team has this team has a number 1 overall pick on the roster.
What? What are we doing?
That's a question that we just asked about them, actually.
We just asked if they had a number 1?
No.
This is going exactly how you want it to go, and
because you don't seem to be enjoying this one. I like it when you enjoy the pain.
No, I wish I was better at it. It's all self-loathing. It's not directed at you or the idea. Okay, so this does have a number 1. Thank you for that clue. Uh,
Would you like a conference affiliation?
yeah, sure.
Eastern Conference team.
All right. I'm looking right. I'm right now. If you're watching this, I'm looking off screen. I'm just looking at the standings so I can see if inspiration jumps into my head from just some random team. Knowing it has a number 1 is helpful. 10, 8, 6. It's not the Cavs. You would have put Harden. You would have put Mitchell, which is like, I don't remember what Mitchell was. Let's do the Sixers, just cause.
That is incorrect.
Who is
it?
This?
Is the Atlanta Hawks. So you have Dyson Daniels at 8, Nah at 17, CJ McCollum at 10, Onyeka Okongwu at 6, and Jalen Johnson was number 20th overall.
You have found the part of my basketball brain that doesn't function, because the only one of those guys, if you'd asked me to guess, I think I might have remembered Okongwu was 6, but I would have not remembered any of those other guys' draft slots.
Are you? Do you want to go through the final 3?
Yes, I do. Let's go.
I think you're going to get at least one.
That's nice to be optimistic.
Number 12 overall pick.
I have no idea who was drafted 12th in any draft. Oh, you know what? We're gonna have you do like a college. We're gonna make you list all Americans from the NCAA pretty soon.
If you did college affiliation for me, it would be. Like, I guarantee you, I would get 0.
How's about the Bucks?
That is incorrect. I appreciate you guessing it all, though. So we have the number 12 pick and the number, was that 16 pick?
16. The Rockets.
That is correct.
Wow.
So they also have a number 3 pick. They also, in addition, have a number 2 pick, and they also, in addition, have a number 4 pick. So they end up being
Thompson, Shepard, and KD, right? That's your 2, 3,
Thompson,
4?
Shepard, and KD. And then you have Alperen Sengun at 16, and then Steven Adams was the 12.
I was like, I couldn't remember if Sengun. I knew he was in the mid-teens.
This was the team for you to get because Steven Adams was on it. So you got one. I'm so proud of you.
I could get back to 500 here if I get this one.
Yes, you could. So that you still have a chance to finish with a winning record. We begin with the number 24 pick.
The Denver Nuggets.
That is incorrect, but I respect it as a choice. The number 11 pick.
11. I'll say the Warriors again.
That is incorrect. Next number on the board. The number 2 pick.
Ooh.
Spicy.
Is this the Thunder?
That is also incorrect. 2 more left. The number 39 pick.
Hey, that's fun. Okay, I should get this, I think, if this is a meaningful player. 39. with a number 2 overall pick, too. I'm just going to scan some teams right now. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm confident that you're going to get it with the next. If you don't get it here, you'll get it with the next draft slot.
I'm surprised at your confidence. Number 2. Is this the Suns?
Incorrect. Final one is drafted 9th overall.
That's not. Why would 9 help? Why would you think that's helpful?
Well, I thought you were maybe looking at the positions on the floor, and that might give you some.
The positions matter. Have I not known this all along?
Well, I look at the pattern. I put the perimeter players for the most part on the perimeter, and then there's always one if Coward for.
This is a pretty big asterisk here. Okay, 2, 24, 9, 11. Oh, Dan has died. Something very funny happened. I don't even know what I said. You said Coward. And I'm guessing 2 is Ja. So I'm going to guess the Grizzlies real quick.
That is correct.
Yeah, we're at 500. What's Coward doing down there?
That's ridiculous. What I said when I'm confronted with if I had to put like a combo forward down there versus, and then I said his name.
You should have put him where Ty Jerome is. You can't have the point guard and the backup point guard on the court together. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
okay. All I know is I'm at 500. This is for all the marbles, this next one.
So Cedric Coward was at number 11, Jalen Wells 39, John Morant 2, Zach Edey was 9, and then number 24 was Ty Jerome, which when I tried to think about before I went to Ty Jerome's page to see where he was drafted, I couldn't remember. I thought it was like 27 or something. So
you were in the neighborhood at least. Edey at 9, I've like completely wiped from my memory. Okay,
this is the final one. First draft slot. Drafted number 10 overall.
Okay, there's a 10 on the wing. I honestly, I keep wanting to guess the Thunder because like that 10, 11, 12 range is where J-Dub was taken, but I can't remember exactly what pick he was. I'll just say the Thunder because he's in the right spot at least.
You could say the Thunder. You would be incorrect.
Thank you.
The next draft slot is
number
23. Michael Jordan, pick. LeBron James.
He's down low though. We've got a big 23 is tough. I can't think of any. I just got to throw a team out there. Let's go Bulls.
That is incorrect. Drafted number 30th. Dead last in the first round. Drafted number 30.
First round. And he's a wing out there. Is this the Magic?
Incorrect. I think you're going to get this. Don't worry. I think it's coming now, actually. Drafted number 33.
30. Oh, let's see. So that would be no, those guys are all way too high up there. So I'm gonna assume that's a point guard. He's at the top. 10 and 30 and 23. Where's like a second rounder that's running a show here? And then who would be 10? I really want to know that last one before I guess.
You want me to reveal it?
Yeah.
The first overall draft pick. They were drafted first overall. So we have to recap. Drafted first overall, 23rd overall, 30th overall, 33rd overall, and 10th overall.
So there's a big guy that was a number 1 pick. I mean, if I just take long enough here, I think I can get there. 1030. Marshall. 1. Okay, well, let's go through. So that if we're talking big guys picked first, it's not the Pelicans because we don't have any other high picks. It's the Mavericks are getting interesting to me. But 30, no, I thought that's 33. It's not Spurs. It's not Phoenix, LA.
You're sitting here going through rosters.
I'm just trying to think. I'm looking through teams and hoping to find an obvious team with a big man at number 1 and a second rounder at the point. Which, as I say, that shouldn't be that hard to find.
I am a little surprised you haven't gotten this. Not gonna lie.
Okay, yeah. Well, so it's like it's not Orlando because you'd have Franz on here, and he was 7 or 6 or something. Toronto doesn't have a number 1. Cleveland does not have a 1. I mean, I want to. So like I can't remember where Brunson was, but I know he was a second rounder, and then Cat would be number 1 there. I thought Anunoby was higher than 10, and I thought Bridges was in the teens. So I don't know. And Hart's, but I'm going to say the Knicks.
You did it. That's correct. You had no idea
Bridges
where Anunoby or Bridges was drafted, but you did it.
Oh my God, they were backwards. I thought Anunoby, I had like 8 in my mind for Anunoby. Okay. Whew. Hey, 3-2. That's a winning record.
That's good stuff by you. So you did 3-2 with I feel like I should get like half of that.
Yeah. Nope. No one's going to remember that you gave it away. Sorry. It was all me.
I apologize that was so difficult. I thought that would be like a medium hard one.
I mean, I'd like to think I could do better in the future, but I'm not sure that's true.
You're free to do this to me at any point you want to come up with one of these, by the way.
Yeah, it's really my own fault.
I don't demand that you're the only one that goes through those exercises, just for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is my fault for not coming up with more stat padding. Now I feel like
I'm just saying maybe you're addicted to torture. Is really what I think it is.
It's a possibility. It's also mostly laziness, if we're being honest. But you know what? That's what you get. So it's
winning record on stat, one of the tougher stat pad. Was this easier or harder than? Remember we did it by career high. That had to be tougher.
That was pretty hard. This one should have been easier. Like, I think there must have been a lot of people listening or watching that are just better at remembering draft slots, where like this isn't difficult at all, you know.
And for some, it was hysterical that you got the Rockets after 2.
I mean, mostly luck, to be honest. Like, having a 2, 3, 4, there's not that. It doesn't seem like there's that many teams that would have that.
But those weren't revealed yet.
That's right.
You got it at 12 and 16, and you got
Şengün at 16. I can't remember who was 12. Oh, Adams was 12, which I didn't know. That was mostly luck. That was total luck. Hey, I'll take it.
Are you ready to take us out of here, sir?
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Please remember, as always, to give us a 5-star rating, leave us a review, leave us some comments on YouTube. But let me know how long it took you to get these, and how much more quickly you did than me in stat padding. How much more quickly you were able to get them than me in stat padding. I'm assuming most people that listen to this were better. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. As always, shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies to Jared Allen.